Welcome to the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 69, Usman versus Buckley, also known as UFC Atlanta. I'm your host, Ben Duffy of Sherdog.com, and with me, as usual, is Keith Shillan, the executive producer of the Sherdog Radio Network. Keith, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, brother. Sorry for the delay of it being a day late. That's on me this time. But yeah, I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. We are at this point 2 days removed from UFC 316, which left us a whole lot of stuff to talk about. We can only hope for the same out of UFC Atlanta. 13 fight card topped by the delayed return of Kamaru Usman against rising welterweight contender Joaquin Buckley. Give me your overall take on this card, your overall temperature of it.
Before I start, I got to say this before I forget. By the time people are watching this, it'll be most likely Tuesday, June 10th. And I want to say happy anniversary to my wife. It'll be 19 years being married to my golden goddess. So happy anniversary to her. To this, I think it's good. I mean, it's on that tier when we're talking about in an arena in a city. You got three former champions on the card. You have Rising Star and Buckley. You got a couple Ultimate Fighter winners, a couple prospects of interest. I give it like a B.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. This felt like a real solid fight night card. So if you are a regular viewer of our previews, you may remember that last week for UFC 316, I told you to just buckle up, because if you are one of the people that enjoys the face Keith makes when I read him off a bizarre betting line, there was going to be plenty for you. This is an interesting one because I can't predict with 100% accuracy how you will react to these lines, Keith. And for those who don't know, Keith makes it a point not to look up the betting odds in advance. What I'm going to say is there are some wide lines on this card, but most of them, to me at least, kind of make sense. I get where they're coming from on these, and that's kind of a different flavor. Wide betting lines are maybe just the new reality in the UFC. It's the new product. They're still cranking out 40, 42 events a year. They're pulling up people on short notice. They're pulling people off their contender series that aren't ready for prime time. And so you get some, minus 400, minus 500 or more favorites. But so if you are an aficionado of the Keith, oh, get the fuck out of here face, we'll see whether we get any of it tonight. Outside of the top two fights on the card, which is the fight that you are most looking forward to here? Which is the one that you would wrap in bubble wrap if you had your way and make sure it makes it to the cage on Saturday?
Two of them are jumping out to me, but just to pick one, well, you know what? The reason why I say two of them jump out to me, the flyweight fight always jumps out to me. So Durden, Ochoa, and I apologize if I'm saying the guy's name wrong.
That's perfect.
That one I'm looking forward to. But I'm gonna go Ricky Simone, Charles Jourdain. I mean, those two are some pretty action fighters. Jourdain is always super exciting, and surprisingly, I'm kind of interested in Garbrandt versus Honey Bocellis.
I'm with you on that. I actually can't wait to talk about that one. I hope the fight turns out as fun as I think it will, but I'm with you. I'm more excited for that than I would be for a fight of that kind of general relevance, fourth from the top on a card, usually, maybe just because of who it is. I'm also excited for Mansour Abdul-Malik versus Cody Brundage. At 8-0, it's way too early to tell whether Abdul-Malik is the real deal, but matching him up with Cody Brundage is a very sensible way to find out. So I like that they're taking the kind of prospect that the UFC will sometimes push way too far, way too fast.
Sure.
Just, this quick twitch knockout artist, and they're giving him sensible matchups with people that present challenges, but if he's got his stuff together, he should be able to beat. So I like that one a lot too. Any other general thoughts on this one before we jump in?
No, let's do it.
All right. The first fight out of the gate at UFC Atlanta is a women's flyweight matchup between short notice opponent Vanessa Demopoulos and Jamey-Lyn Horth. Demopoulos, the 36-year-old from Ohio by way of Colorado, is 11-7 overall. She's 5-4 since joining the UFC as a veteran of season 4 of Dana White's Contender Series. She fought on the Contender Series, lost to Corey McKenna won another fight or two, signed with the UFC. She's 5-4 since then. Worth noting that she's 5-4 exclusively at strawweight. She is stepping up on short notice in place of Teresa Bleda here to take on Horth. Horth, 35 years old, from Western Canada. She's 7-2 overall. She's 2-2 in the UFC. She fought most recently back in December, dropping a unanimous decision to Miranda Maverick. She has alternated wins and losses throughout her UFC run. She would love to get back in the win column here. She is comfortably favored to do so, as you might expect. Horth is your favorite. What number does the line start with, Keith?
We said comfortable. So negative 185.
Horth, minus 500.
Get the fuck out of here.
Plus 375. All right, that's one for those of you counting at home. It's worth noting to me that Horth against Bleda was the underdog. Bleda was coming in around minus 180, minus 190. Horth around plus 150 up until Demopoulos stepped in a week or two ago. This is one of the ones where I kind of get why the line is as wide as it is. Like, I wouldn't put money on Horth at minus 500, but I understand why the line is huge, because Demopoulos's main problems at strawweight have been that she's too tiny. And now she's moving up to flyweight. She's taking on a big flyweight. Jamey-Lyn Horth, whatever her strengths and limitations may be, she's 5'7". She's got some muscle on her frame. She's a good sized flyweight. Demopoulos is going to look at least a weight class smaller, which is as it should be, because she is. Demopoulos is still surprisingly kind of nimble and athletic, just considering her age, considering the amount of wear on her from both her fight career and her pre-fight career exploits. And no, I'm talking about grappling, not stripping. But yeah, she's slowed a tick by tick as time has worn on. She seemed to be an improving striker for a while, and she's still a well-schooled striker. She's clearly been at a place like Factory X for like 5 years now. She knows how to throw combinations. She knows how to throw a 1-2 or a 2-3 finished with a leg kick. She has decent mechanics on her shots, but she's short. She has short arms. She's losing that quick. She never had the Tisha Torres thing where, yeah, I'm tiny, but I'm so quick and I throw in such heavy volume that I can get in, a taller fighter and get out. She never had that. So at this point, she's someone who tries to bounce her way into range with strikes and get things onto the ground. That's her wheelhouse. She is a very good grappler, a medalist, at least at North American no-gi championships, like a very, very good grappler. Her biggest claim to fame before the UFC was, of course, getting a finish in LFA with an inverted triangle choke, which, it was on everyone's submission of the year list back then. But everything she does well is stuff that's not going to work well against Horth. Horth, like I said, big, strong flyweight. She is a minus athlete. She was a minus athlete when she was 27. It's not gotten better as she's 35 now. I struggled to see how Demopoulos would beat her. Either Horth would have to just be incredibly inert and just not throw any strikes at all and have Demopoulos win a classic, terrible women's flyweight kickboxing battle against her, where she throws a few more strikes, lands a few more strikes, neither woman hurts the other, or she would have to get Horth down and get her into trouble on the ground. And I have a hard time picturing either of those things happening. They would have to involve either a bad tactical mistake or a bad strategic game plan on Horth's part. And that's not been her thing. If anything, Horth has overachieved since she's been to the UFC. She's come in, and whatever else you might say about her, she's not lost fights that she's supposed to win. This is a fight she's supposed to win. She's at the UFC level. She's not shown herself to be a huge finisher. She's more of a grindy control type top position grappler. She's not a huge hitter on the feet. and Demopoulos is incredibly durable. So I'm picturing Horth just wins a real simple, straightforward 30-27 decision here.
Yeah, I mean, so the reason why I was saying, so I probably should have went bigger on the odds. I might have overreacted a little bit, but it is still Jamey-Lyn. I totally get what you're saying about Demopoulos and her biggest struggle being just going to be so much smaller. Now, I'm not going to talk about, like, for the longest time, I'd always mention something about Demopoulos, but I don't remember that, like, I don't know, that we had this one listener. She was committed. She would listen to every single week. Just like, I don't know, Susan B. Anthony wannabe, where she was all like, everything I talked about a woman, she'd be like, oh, he's degrading women and I don't know. And finally I was like, all right, I get it. You don't like me. And then she was like, she stopped listening ever since that. But yeah, she'd get all mad if I'm not gonna say like Vanessa Demopoulos was a stripper and her dad was DJing in the booth. Like, that was a little crazy, but as far as this fight goes, yeah, this fight sucks. I don't hate Demopoulos. She has continued to improve her striking. She's definitely a volume striker. She's constantly moving forward. She's one of the ones, she's willing to eat shots to land some of her own, but up a weight class against a big woman, I don't know if that's a wise decision. She throws big, tight hooks. She loves to follow some winging overhands. She has more power than you think, though she will load up and telegraph her shots. But I mean, she's rocked Jin Fry. She rocked Elmi Cody. I mean, Cody's a decent sized female, but I mean, Jin Fry's atom weight, really. Yeah. She likes to dip down, like she's going for a takedown and then come up and land a big punch. Big kicking game, throws a bunch of high kicks. She'll throw some naked kicks. I shouldn't say naked. She throws kicks that she doesn't sit up, so she's open to be countered. She eats a lot of shots because she lacks head movement. She will close the distance or work in the clinch, a position that's not going to really be well based on the size difference she's given up. When she's in there, she likes the dirty box. She tries to get to the fight to the ground, but her offensive wrestling is bad. She kind of just shoots and hopes a scramble happens. She is a good grappler. She gets the fight down. I mean, she's got a big arsenal of submissions. We're talking guillotines and rear naked choke. She kind of loves arm bars, but her takedown defense is really bad. She struggles to get back to her feet. She plays BJJ way too much off her back, would be a really bad sign against someone smaller than her. She looks for subs off her back, and she has really good cardio. Now, Jamey-Lyn Horth, she's a long and lengthy striker for the division. She's a better athlete than I originally thought, but she's still not a very good fighter. She moves well. She likes a lot of L stepping, but she hates being pressured. She has good output on the feet, but she is gun shy against Veronica Hardy in their fight. She has slow hands. She throws straight punches down the pipe, which I like. She's got good teep kicks. She throws kicks without setting them up though, so she's also very hittable. She keeps her chin high in the air. She's been hurt in a lot of her fights. She will close the distance and kind of grind against the clinch. She isn't a very good offensive wrestler. I mean, she was a really bad defense. I mean, she got headlocked by Petrovic, but she showed improved takedown defense against Miranda Maverick. Now, I'm not saying she was Jose Aldo out there, but and she was hard to hold down. She has 2 submission wins, though when she's looking for subs, she kind of rushes position, losing position, trying to get the sub. But she's got good cardio. She'll go hard. I don't understand the odds. I don't think Horth should be that big of a favorite really against anybody, even with the size advantage. But she is much bigger than Demopoulos. I actually think she's more technical on the feet and obviously hits harder. But Demopoulos has more volume. She does have the better ground game. She can get down there. I think she'll have a hard time getting Horth down based on the size, and just Demopoulos not a good wrestler anyways. I'm gonna take Horth. I'm gonna take it by decision, but I don't think she's gonna look like a 5-1 favorite. But give me Horth by decision.
Next up on the UFC on ESPN 69 undercard, a couple of up and coming welterweights. They come from all over the world. They came through Florida. They meet in Atlanta. It is Phil Rowe versus Ange Loosa. Rowe, the 34-year-old New Yorker by way of Fusion XL, is 10-5 overall. He's 3-3 since joining the UFC out of the third season of Dana White's Contender Series. He's coming in on a 2-fight losing streak, the first of his career. He fought just once last year. It was almost exactly a year ago at UFC 302, where he dropped a unanimous decision to Jake Matthews. Prior to that, it had been a full year before that, June of 2023, that he lost via split decision to Neil Magny. So Rowe, looking to snap the first losing streak of his career, he will need to get past Loosa to do it. The 32-year-old from Congo, by way of South Florida as well, he is a Killcliff FC product. He is 10-4 with one no contest overall. He is 2-2 with one no contest since joining the UFC as a veteran of Dana White's Contender Series Season 5. He is coming in off a loss as well. He fought last July at UFC on ESPN Namajunas versus Cortez, where he lost via unanimous decision to Gabriel Bonfim. Odds are pretty close here. Favorite is -130, underdog +110. Who are they, Keith?
I'm glad that the odds are close. This is a really tough one. I'm gonna say Rowe's the favorite.
It's actually Loosa. As of right now, Ange Loosa is -130. Phil Rowe +110. Give me your take on this fight. Who do you think wins? How does the fight play out?
Yeah, this is a good one. This is actually one of the one I'm interested in. I think both guys have showed promises. Rowe's on a little bit of a skid right now, but he has looked really brilliant at times. And then Loosa, Loosa's like a very unsung hero in the weight class. Rowe, I mean, obviously when you think of Rowe, you just think that's like gigantic guy for the weight class. I mean, I always go back to the Nico Price fight, who's gigantic for the weight class himself, and he made Nico Price look small. He's a good athlete, but he kind of needs to use his athleticism more. He needs to move more. He hates being pressured. He wants to work from distance, but he doesn't really keep his distance that well. And a big thing of that is because he pillars, which just allows guys to crash the pocket and get inside. Sometimes he can be a little gun shy. He'll throw way too many single strikes. He does well to throw straight shots down the pike, which I like. I like that he works a jab to the body. I mean, he beat the hell out of Oran Kosi's body in their fight. He has good power. I mean, he's, like I said, he's big for the weight class. He's got 6 TKOs. Obviously, he has a great kicking game. But I've said this more. I shouldn't say he has a great kicking game. He when he throws kicks, they're hard, but he should throw kicks more. He doesn't throw them enough. And definitely something that would help him keep the distance. He can use his size well in the clinch. It's actually one of his favorite positions. He goes to the body with knees. And he isn't much of an offensive wrestler, but he can grapple. He's a submission threat. He's very powerful ground and pound. He has got a great guillotine. If he's put on his back, though, he will play BJJ too much. And because of his, obviously he's got a massive weight cut. I don't trust his cardio. And despite getting like a 3rd round TKO against Price, he was slowing down in that fight. He was also hurt by Price a lot. So, and I keep going back to that one fight, but I mean, he lost to Magny. He lost to Matthews. Like he's been on a really bad skid now. His opponent, Losa's a guy that, like I said, he's been really, doing well in the UFC and kind of overshadowed by a lot of the guys that he's going against. And it's because he's probably not the most excited for it. I mean, he's a technical striker. I see he had solid volume. Like I wouldn't say high volume, but he can cruise a little bit. He's accurate. He works behind a nice crisp jab. He throws straight shots behind it as follow-up shots. He attacks with combinations. I like that he switches stance in mid combination when he's attacking. One negative on is he tends to observe his work a little bit. So he watches his shot a little too much instead of quickly bringing it back, which is why he's open to be counted sometimes as he exits the pocket. He does work the body well. He's got a good kicking game. He kind of more of an old school kicker where he throws a lot of inside kicks. Defense, he pillars on defense, which I think is the worst. He also didn't like being pressured by AJ Fletcher in their fight. He has shown a good chin. He's been cracked and has done really well to withstand though. He's a very underrated wrestler. Fast entries. He's got a good top game if he gets the fight to the ground. He showed really good takedown defense against AJ Fletcher. Good cardio. He went hard against Munar Lazez and Rhys McGee was going hard in that. The one time he gassed out was that Fletcher fight a little bit, and I don't think he completely gassed out, but I think that had more to do with fighting in Salt Lake City. And despite gassing out, he still won. So I'm glad that this is a really hard fight to pick, because I used to be really high on Rowe, and he's looked bad lately, but it's still there. Like, he has those flashes, and I think of the two guys, he's probably the if you told me one of these guys is going to be a top 5 fighter one day, I'd go, okay, Rowe. I think Losa's the more polished guy, and he's definitely more underrated. I think he gets inside. I think he lands some takedowns, and I think those might shift really close rounds in his favor, especially if Rowe spends a lot of time on his back throwing up submissions instead of trying to scramble back up. I think I want to say it's going to be really close, but give me Losa by split decision.
Yeah, this isn't. I'm 100% with you that I'm glad the line is close on this one, because this is one of the hardest fights on the card to call. And completely agree with your assessments of both fighters as well. You mentioned that the thing that stands out about Phil Rowe is just the frame he's got on him, that where he was taller and rangier than Nico Price, who was a freak at 170. And I remember the Magny fight, Rowe came out with the same haircut as Magny, and I was like, oh, are you freaking kidding me? Because they have the exact same build, and then they had like the same braids. I'm like, oh, Booth is going to misidentify these guys about 15 times during this fight. And then a ton of it took place in the clinch, where it's just like two braided heads against each other and like a bunch of skinny arms and elbows. Oh,
yeah. But in fairness, like it could have been Neil Magny versus Court McGee, and DC's still going to mix them up. So it's all right.
and Rogan will call him some name that is neither guy's name. Like, yeah. And I agree with the assessment of Losa. He is a guy that he's 500 in the UFC, and he has that one no contest where he frankly came out of it looking kind of bad just by the optics test, because he couldn't continue from an eye poke. But then 90 seconds after the eye poke, he was trying to throw punches at Brian Battle. So that wasn't a great look, but he's better than we kind of collectively remember him to be. He's better than his record looks. And it's kind of coincidental that he's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, because he's kind of like a welterweight Czech Congo. You look at the dude, you look at his build, and you're like, oh man, this guy is going to kick some ass. He is going to jack somebody's jaw into the 10th row. And then he just turns out to be a very kind of buttoned up, old school type kickboxer, and a surprisingly good offensive wrestler, and a guy who's good at slowing things down in the clinch. It really is kind of a mini Czech Congo type thing. I would feel pretty comfortable and optimistic taking the Rowe upset, except that, yeah, he hasn't looked great in any of his last 3 fights. I do like that you mentioned that despite getting the finish against Nico Price, it had not been a standout performance until then. And he's kind of turned into a once a year fighter at an age, he's 34 now, where that's not optimal. So I feel as though there's more unknowns about him. More question of, okay, what's Phil Rowe going to look like in the cage? What version of him are we going to get? And it's hard for me to imagine that it's going to be suddenly a sharper and more focused guy than the one who didn't put his best foot forward against Magny or Matthews or Price. And meanwhile, I feel as though we know what we have with Losa. So much as I'd like to grab that low-hanging upset fruit and go on record calling Rowe to win this one, I'm with you. I think Losa wins, and unless Rowe is magically better and more focused than he was a year ago, Losa might make it look more straightforward and easier than the line suggests. Either way, a good fight, an important fight for the division, but it might not be the most exciting fight on the card. Men's bantamweights are up next at UFC Atlanta as Ricky Simón takes on Charles Jourdain. Simón, the 32-year-old Washington State native, is 21-6 overall. He's 11-5 since joining the UFC out of the first season of Dana White's Contender Series. He is coming in off a win. He lamped Javid Basharat in the first round at UFC Fight Night Cejudo versus Song back in February. That was a sensational finish for him. Great knockout. It also snapped a 3-fight losing streak for him. So very important for his career in the UFC period, let alone any dreams of returning to the top 10 and becoming a contender again. He'll look to extend those good vibes at the expense of Jourdain. 29-year-old from Quebec is 16-8-1 overall. He is an even 7-7-1 since joining the UFC as an outgoing 2-division champ in TKO. He was the TKO featherweight as well as lightweight champ. He's 500 in the UFC, but worth noting, he is 1-0 at bantamweight. He dropped to 135 pounds last November and faced Victor Henry and got the finish by second-round guillotine choke. So he will look to keep the streak going in his new weight class. He is not favored to do so. Simone is minus 180, Jourdain plus 150 as your underdog. I probably shouldn't be too confident in my take on this fight, considering that I really, really picked each of these guys' last fights badly. I thought Fiorot was going to truck Simone back in February, and I figured fourth straight loss for Simone, he might be on our cut list and maybe even the UFC's. Instead, all things considered, the opponent, the way the fight finished, you can make the argument it was his best performance in the UFC period. And we're talking about a guy that floated around the lower edges of the top 10 for several years there and has beaten some very good guys, but he looked sensational. Jourdain, I can't remember whether I picked him to beat Victor Henry or not, but I know I went on record saying moving down to bantamweight's a bad idea. He's a pretty decent sized featherweight who fights at a frenetic pace and uses a lot of explosive movement. He's going to lose a lot of what makes him special at featherweight. This is a terrible idea. And he goes down. He does not fall for any of Victor Henry's bag of tricks and ends up tapping him out. And Victor Henry is a wily veteran with a million fights and a guy extremely capable of taking care of himself on the ground. So again, for Jourdain, maybe even more than Simone, you can make a good case that that's his best performance in the UFC so far. Like, it's not a flying knee knockout or anything, but considering who he did it to, how and when, it's a fantastic performance. My gut says Simone's approach is probably going to work on Jourdain. Simone is as classic, pure, old school a wrestle boxer as we probably have left in the UFC at this point. It's either him or someone like Josh Emmett, but he's the one that is youngest and closest to his athletic prime. I mean, I can't believe he's still just 32. He was super young when he got to the UFC. But yeah, he's a good wrestler, comes forward and sets his entries up with flurries of punches. He used to fight at a Merab type pace, kind of ironically considering they met very early in their UFC runs, but that was Simone's calling card as well. Like, I'm going to come forward, I'm going to throw a million punches at you, look for the moment to time a level change, drop you to the ground, punch you some more, and either punch you out, get you to turn your back, submit you. Like, that's everybody knows what Simone's going to come out and do. Like, there's no secret here. We know what the plan is. Jourdain is a little more unpredictable, but he is a long, lanky, long-limbed striker. He was even at 145. He's even more so at 135. He's capable of throwing good volume, but what he really likes to do is, do some feints, throw a few half-speed things, and then try to explode and really zing his guy with one big shot. Which is great if he finds that one big shot. Otherwise, it's going to be tough for him to win rounds against someone like Ricky Simone with that approach. The other thing he's really good at is he's not a great defensive wrestler, but he's a very good opportunistic submission artist. He's one of the few guys that I don't just instantly groan and like gesture at my TV when I see him slap a guillotine on in response to a double leg. Having said that, if your best chances to beat Ricky Simone are either catching him with a guillotine or an intercepting knee on his way in or head kicking him at range, it's tough for me to pick you. Simone's chin is not what it was 5 years ago, but it's still pretty rugged. And while Jourdain clearly can knock some dudes into next week, his power isn't actually what his highlight reel would lead you to expect. And I know that sounds weird and contradictory, but I mean, there have been plenty of fighters in the UFC like that. Like Rumble Johnson's power is exactly what his highlight reel looked like. Like he could do that to you any given minute of any given fight. I could put you together a highlight reel of Rashad Evans that would make you think he was Rumble Johnson, and he was not.
He'd also do it to his wife, but whatever.
Oh boy. Wait, Rashad or Rumble?
Like Rumble.
Oh, I was gonna say, like Rashad seemed like a real good citizen to me. Like, all right, no, yeah, but Rumble, yeah, you didn't even have to be married. He'd hit you no matter what. Anyway,
No, Rumble would probably hit Rashad's wife.
That's terrible. For me, this should be a really fun fight.
Sorry. I know someone would be like, "Oh, dude, he's dead. Let it go." Yeah, fuck him.
Yeah, he's dead, so now he can never really live those things down or fix them. So, you know, either don't hit women or don't die. This feels pretty straightforward to me. Jourdain would have to find something big. It's possible. That's why the line is fairly close. But the most obvious call for me is Simone by decision. At least 2 out of 3 rounds. He's going to get a takedown early enough in the round that it basically shuts out most of Jourdain's best offense. And he probably outlands him in terms of striking volume in all 3 rounds. So unless Jourdain comes back with something vicious enough to negate the fact that he's kind of getting outlanded 3-2, it feels like a pretty straightforward decision win for Simone to me.
Yeah, this is one of the fights I'm mostly excited about. I think it's much closer than you're viewing it. I like so remember Ricky Simone, he is, I mean, I think you're higher than I am at this point. I mean, one thing that was his game was all about his athleticism for a long time, and I think his athleticism has really declined over the years. Even though he has had a really good outing his last fight, obviously, but he's a wrestle boxer. He used to have very good volume, but his output was really low against Vinicius Oliveira. I say he still has some pretty quick hands. He'll tackle combinations. He'll throw down in the pocket. He can brawl a little bit. He works the body. He's hittable due to his lack of head movement. Now, he does hit hard. I mean, we saw that against Jack Shaw. I mean, he just knocked Javid Basharat dead. He throws hard calf kicks. He is actually one of the few guys who checks kicks. He once was a great wrestler, but his wrestling ability, to me, you're much higher at this point than I am. I think his wrestling ability has really declined. He's not really exploding through the hips anymore. If he gets the fight down, then he can be a problem. He does have good control. He has the mindset to kind of work for every inch as he's holding you down. Though he struggled to keep Song Yadong down in their matchup. Again, that's a very special fighter, but he likes head and arm chokes, and he gassed a little bit against Mario Batista. And in fairness, that was a really high paced fight following 3 rounds, and obviously that loss has aged extremely well. Jourdain, I'm going to say this as a compliment, but some people might not think that. He's more of an athlete than a fighter. He can fight out of both stances. He flows really well. He's got great output. I mean, his volume against Shane Burgos was insane. He looked really fast in his last fight. He's got fast hands. He's explosive. He's got a really sharp left hand. He loves his lead uppercut. He can overthrow his shots, which is open to be countered and also to be taken down, as you mentioned. He'll love those flying attacks, but I agree what you said. Like, that's not his game. His game is his volume and his toughness. Massive kicking game. He loves to end combinations with kicks, especially high kicks, which is really fun. He throws some hard body kicks, good calf kicks. He does get hit a lot, but as long as he's fighting at a really high pace, he doesn't care if he gets hit a lot because he thinks his opponent won't be able to sustain that pace. But his chin might be failing him. I mean, he was recently knocked out by Gene Silva. Again, I sound like a broken record, a loss that has aged really well. He isn't a wrestler, but he can sneak in a takedown. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the case against Simone, but if he gets it down, he's a really good grappler. I mean, as you mentioned, he's got one of the best guillotines in the game, something Simone's going to have to watch out for if he goes in for, double and leaves his neck out there. You leaving the neck out there, Jourdain's taking your head home. That's what he does. I mean, he's subbed a bunch of guys in the UFC with it. Now, he's been subbed himself. So he's not this he's not Charles Oliveira. He's not Damian Wyatt. He's not like that. I mean, he was subbed by Julian Rosa. Again, Rosa is a criminally underrated fighter. If he's taken down, he's become much better at getting back to his feet, and he's got the cardio to just not stop the entire fight. It is prime. I think Simone would have been a really big threat to Jourdain. We view this fight way differently. I just don't think he's that same guy anymore. I think his volume has dipped. I think his wrestling's declined. Obviously, the way I look at this, I only see Simone having a puncher's chance. I was surprised that Jourdain. You said Jourdain's the underdog, right?
I believe he is. Yeah. Simone's minus 180.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. I think Jourdain's going to style on him. I think he's going to have way too much volume. He's going to be way too fast. I don't think this fight's close. I think Jourdain might sub him as he's coming in, or more likely, I think he just smashes him for a lopsided decision, just overwhelms him with volume.
All right. Sounds like we have our first upset pick of the night, and we have very different takes on this fight, and that's what makes the recaps fun. Men's flyweights are up next at UFC on ESPN 69 as Cody Durden faces off against Jose Ochoa. Durden, the 34-year-old Atlanta native, should get a great response from the crowd. He has 17 wins, 7 losses, and 1 draw overall. He is 6-5-1 in the UFC. He is coming in off a loss, and he has, in fact, lost 3 of his last 4. But last time we saw him in the cage was at UFC 310 last December, where he dropped a unanimous decision to Josh Van. About as excusable as they come. But nonetheless, in his last 4 fights, he has losses to Tagiro Lumbekov, Bruno Silva, and Van, wrapped around a second-round submission finish of Matt Schnell. He's looking to right the ship here. He's going to need to do it against an intriguing prospect in the young Peruvian. Ochoa, 24 years old, Peruvian, fighting out of Brazil. He's a shoot-to-box Diego Lima product. Professional record, 7 wins, 1 loss, 1 no contest. He's 0-1 in the UFC. He arrived in the UFC last November as an undefeated prospect and ran into an even hotter prospect in the form of Lanier Kavanagh, came out on the wrong end of a unanimous decision. He will look to get in the win column, bounce back from his first career loss. He is moderately favored to do so. He is minus 180, Durden plus 150. Keith, Cody Durden, he's hit a rough patch as of late, but he's about as battle-tested as they come in that division. He's fought almost all the top guys. He's beaten a few of them, lost to a few of them. We know a lot less about Ochoa. Tell me why he's the favorite here and whether you agree with it.
He's really talented. I think this is a really good fight. I thought in his last fight, I thought he had a pretty good showing and against another really talented flyweight. I mean, that division is so criminally underrated. I mean, it really is my favorite division. There's no such thing as a bad flyweight fight. So I'm sure someone will put in the comment of a flyweight fight that sucks, but you get my point. Yeah. Durden is as exciting as they come. Whether he's this incredible talent that's or a contender, maybe not. But I mean, like you said, he's battle tested. He's a high output striker. He's very fun. He's constantly moving forward. He's got quick hands. He works behind a hard jab. He falls into the pocket where he unleashes bombs. He's good at throwing first, slipping, and then throwing third. He loves his counter right hand. He has a great overhand right, which he throws. He throws tight, hard shots. He's got a lot of power. He's one of the hardest hitters in the division. Oh yeah. He throws a lot of hard kicks. He's actually one of the few fighters. It's actually a theme on this card. He actually checks leg kicks. He's a solid wrestler. I mean, even though he's not the most credentialed, I think he was like a Georgia divisional champion or maybe some kind of state champion. But he can wrestle for someone who's not, wasn't a D1 All-American. He's relentless with his takedowns. He chains takedowns together well. Nice top control. He's a good grappler. I always go back. I remember a long time ago, but at that time it was so impressive when he went against Chris Gutierrez and held on to him, backpacked him the entire round. I like his ground and pound. He is a submission threat. He loves like neck attacks. He caught Matt Snell in a super slick ninja choke. And not that for a guy who's good offense, right? Not the best defensive wrestler, and a lot of that is due to his aggressive style. He's also will give up his back to work back to his feet. He needs to improve his submission defense. I mean, he's been subbed 3 times in the UFC, but he showed he's super tough. Like, I mean, I always go back to that Jake Haley fight where Jake Haley had an extremely deep armbar, and he found a way to get out. It looked like his arm was going to break. He has been hurt a lot because he trusts his chin a lot. He's in there. I mean, I go back to like Bruno Silva, knocked him out. He ate tons of strikes from Josh Van. And he's got a really large gas tank. Now, Ochoa, what I like about this guy, he's only 24 years old. So, I love that. Everything I've seen him, I really liked. He's southpaw, high output. He can be wild. He can overthrow his strikes, leave him to be countered or taken down. Similar to Durden. I love he looks for elbows inside. He's got good power, and he really hasn't even reached his power years yet. He throws a lot of kicks. He likes like the John Jones oblique kick. He loves working inside the plum clinch. It might be his best position. He grabs he's that old school like Anderson Silva style. He grabs that neck and he's just blasting. Anderson Silva, Rich Franklin. Was that the first fight they had? But he will get takedowns, but I wouldn't call him a wrestler. Though he has shown solid takedown defense. He needs to improve his top control though. He will advance his position on the ground, but his overall control isn't that good, and he's got a hard ground and pound. This is a really fun fight. I think he should have the main card, but Ochoa looks like a really good prospect. This is a step up in competition still, though. I'm going to go with the upset. I like Durden. I think Durden can match Ochoa's power. I think he definitely will match his aggression. No one out aggressions Durden. Plus, I think he'll be the one to land a few takedowns. Give me Durden. I'm going to say super close again. I'm going to say Durden by split decision.
This one is unanimous. I like Durden as well. And clearly he is, to some extent, in decline. He's 34, but it's a 34 that entails a lot of wear and tear. You mentioned he's an aggressive guy, even by the standards of a very aggressive division. I mean, the coolest thing about one of the coolest things about men's flyweight is that for the most part, since Demetrius Johnson left, there hasn't been a play it safe fighter at the top. There's no George St. Pierre just parking on the belt for 6 years. You look at Pantoja, Moreno, Figueiredo, just all these psychotically aggressive fighters just crashing together like a bunch of demolition derby cars. Even by the standards of that division, Durden's a pretty aggressive dude. There's a possibility that his durability, his speed, his gas tank will have abandoned him overnight, and Ochoa will just style on him, because I do think he's part of the future of the division. There's every possibility that Ochoa versus Lania Kavanaugh is a fight that we see again 4 years down the road for much higher stakes. But for now, Durden having better one-shot power, being a physically bigger and stronger guy. You mentioned how impressive it was that he backpacked Chris Gutierrez. Worth noting that was on short notice up a weight class. Durden fought at the time a fringe contender bantamweight and was not physically outgunned at all. If Durden's going the way we are, this might go down as one of his last great wins. Like I say, he's an old 34, and Ochoa is part of the wave of the future. But I'm with you. Give me Durden to hand Jose Ochoa his second straight loss to start his UFC run in by decision in a wildly entertaining fight where he probably hurts Ochoa a few times on the feet. If Lania Kavanaugh can do that, I think Durden can as well. So we have a unanimous upset pick here for Cody Durden. Next up on the UFC Atlanta undercard, an interesting matchup that sort of came together out of nowhere within the last 2 weeks before fight night. It is Malcolm Wellmaker welcoming Kris Moutinho back to the Octagon. Wellmaker, the 31-year-old Augusta, Georgia native. Again, a little bit of hometown appeal here. A perfect 9-0 as a professional, 1-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 8 of Dana White's Contender Series. He won on the Contender Series last August, made his debut. It'll be 7 weeks from fight night back in April. Knocked out Cameron Simon in the first round. Sensational promotional debut. He makes the relatively quick turnaround here, and he gets Moutinho. 32-year-old from Milford, Massachusetts. 14-6 overall. He's 0-2 in the UFC. He was very famously or infamously brought in as a short notice opponent for Sean O'Malley 4 years ago. Was tougher than shoe leather in lasting until almost the end of the fight before finally getting the mercy TKO from Herb Dean. Then he came back and got knocked the hell out by Guido Canetti a few months later. That was good enough to get his walking papers, but he did what you're supposed to do after that. He went back to New England and won 5 straight fights by finish and made himself the guy who got the call to get Malcolm Wellmaker a fight, basically, in his native state. Wellmaker is obviously your favorite. Keith, what number does the line start with? Just what number does it start with?
1.
You are correct.
It's 1,000. Is it really?
You are correct. It starts with a 1. The next number is a 4, and there are 2 zeros after it. Malcolm Wellmaker, the biggest favorite in the UFC thus far this year, and probably the biggest favorite we will see all year. He is minus 1,400. You can get Kris Moutinho at plus 800, or you could simply set your money on fire in your backyard. I'm kidding. We'll talk about the actual fight, but yeah, Wellmaker, massive favorite. And again, I'm not bargain shopping. I'm grabbing kind of a median of the 4 or 5 most well-recognized North American sports books. If you're not careful, you can end up paying minus 1,700 on Wellmaker right now, but plus 800 is about as good as you can get on Moutinho.
Wow.
Keith, Kris Moutinho is he's basically the same fighter he was in the O'Malley and Canetti fights. I'll say this for him. He's 32. Physically, he seems like the same fighter he was in his late 20s when he was fighting O'Malley and Canetti. He's not particularly a plus athlete. He is a decently sized bantamweight. I mean, he looked kind of small and stumpy next to O'Malley, but almost everybody does. He was bigger than Guido Canetti, but he's big enough that his last 2 fights in New England were both at featherweight, and it didn't really seem to matter. He's a guy that he's the definition of a good regional journeyman who will probably never be UFC level. And I feel very comfortable saying now that he's 32 that he'll never really be UFC level. That doesn't mean there aren't some guys in the UFC bantamweight division that he could beat on the right night, but it just would make no sense to sign him to a 4-fight deal because you're not going to find 2 of them. But what I'll say for him is on the regional scene, he doesn't lose fights he should win. The people who've beaten him are just better fighters. Most of them are ones who had at least a cup of coffee in the UFC. And when you get him against regional guys, he looks good. Like his very last fight was him avenging a loss to Johnny Campbell. And I mean, Campbell has got to be almost 40 at this point, and Moutinho just whooped him. But some of the other guys he fought in the last couple of years since getting cut from the UFC were guys on the way up, and Moutinho turned him back emphatically. Yeah, he's a decent regional fighter that against any UFC level bantamweight is just going to be way out of his depth. Guido Canetti was not a particularly good fighter. He was way too old when he got to the UFC. He was pretty much a one-dimensional power puncher when he fought Moutinho, but guess what he did? He power punched him. That's the problem. Moutinho doesn't really have the athleticism to stop the other fighter from doing what they want to do to him. O'Malley wanted to potshot the hell out of Moutinho at range. He knew Moutinho wouldn't be able to get in close on him. He knew that regionally, Moutinho prefers to box people. He's like, well, I'm going to box the shit out of you. And he did that. Like, it was a moral victory that he made it as long as he did. But that fight could have been stopped anytime after about 4 minutes, and it wouldn't have been a robbery of a stoppage. That all spells trouble against Wellmaker. Wellmaker is a big, athletic, well-rounded bantamweight. I don't know what his upside is, but based on what we've seen so far, the only thing that might stop him from at least spending some time in the top 10 is the clock. You know, he's a little on the old side to be a bantamweight in just his 10th fight, but everything else is there. He has crushing punching power, while he prefers to use his wrestling in reverse and just keep things on the feet and try to knock you out. He's a pretty well-rounded guy for a guy with as few professional fights as he has. This is a real straightforward matchup for me. I think Wellmaker knocks him out in the first round. Just he's going to start blistering Moutinho immediately. The difference in reach and hand speed is going to be starkly obvious. If Moutinho tries to wrestle Wellmaker, that would be the wise strategy, but it might be a poor tactic because I think it'll just get him knocked out even faster. Yeah, it's taken me a long time to say what I could have said in 20 seconds. Wellmaker by first round knockout here. This is a squash match. And while I'm never comfortable taking a minus 1400 favorite in MMA, like look how close we got to not having a Merab fight on Saturday because some assholes like fell through the fell off the bleachers onto him. Like there's just too many pipes to slip on. But I understand why Wellmaker's this big a favorite. He is UFC quality and then some, and Moutinho just isn't.
You said you could pick this in 20 seconds. Like, let's not even go through this. You get a real prospect versus, like, dude. Imagine you're Moutinho, and I understand the guy's never going to be a real UFC talent, and he faces against Sean O'Malley, gets the legendary status because of the freaking ass whooping that gets handed to him. And it was too good for his own good. Then he gets knocked out cold by Guido Canetti.
Dude.
So then he works his way, gets all the thing, and what you're going to do is you're going to give him a short notice on the road in Atlanta against a guy from Atlanta, you know, the Atlanta area against Malcolm Wellmaker. I know he's older than, you know, but like a true prospect.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck, guys? Like, how about you want to bring him back? Give him like the low-level guy that he actually can possibly beat. All right, I say I could do this in 20 seconds, but dude, this is an absolute mismatch, obviously. I mean, Tino's a tough SOB, but I mean, Wellmaker's levels ahead of this dude.
Okay, here's the question for you then. Like, this is my prop bet. Will the fight go long enough for somebody on the UFC desk to say, Kris Moutinho beat Damon Blackshear once upon a time? Will they be able to get that sentence out?
He's super tough, and so maybe, but like, dude, Wellmaker's gonna fucking blast this guy next week. He's good, and like, I'm not gonna. Why? Honestly, the line might not be big enough. He could be like negative 2,000, and you know, if I had the money, I would bet it. Like, it's free $100 if you bet in 2,000. Like, it's just like if someone said, "Hey, hand me $2,000 and I give you 2,100," I'd do it. Like, he's gonna freaking blast Moutinho. There's no way Moutinho wins this fight. Wellmaker by first round knockout.
Welterweights are up next at UFC on ESPN 69. It is Michael Chiesa versus Court McGee. Chiesa, the 37-year-old Washington State native, is 18-7 overall. He is 13-7 since joining the UFC out of season 15 of The Ultimate Fighter. He is 13-7 in the UFC. He's 6-3 at welterweight. He started his UFC run as an impossibly long, gangly, and dehydrated lightweight, finally moved up to 170, and his record at 170 is actually slightly better. He's coming in on a 2-fight win streak. That's the good news. The bad news is that those 2 wins were against Tony Ferguson and Max Griffin. Both of them were rear naked chokes, so he does have a bit of momentum coming into this fight. The same can sort of be said for his opponent, McGee, 40-year-old Utah native, 22-13 overall, 11-12 since joining the UFC out of season 11 of The Ultimate Fighter. That's back when The Ultimate Fighter was in black and white. He's coming in off a win as well. He fought at UFC 307 last October, where he tapped out Tim Means in the first round. That snapped a 3-fight losing streak for him. So against all odds, 2 of the more aged welterweights in the division coming in off at least 1 win. Chiesa is unsurprisingly your favorite. Keith, what number does the line start with?
2.
Wider. Keith, it is Chiesa minus 375, McGee plus 250.
Yeah, these lines are big.
They're big. I mean, again, it is obvious why Chiesa is the favorite. He's younger, and for what it's worth, he is less shop worn than McGee, but everybody is less shop worn than McGee. Like, the problem is there is a route to the upset here. You know, I've if you're watching this, you've heard me say before, anytime the line is, 4-1 or greater, or in that neighborhood, I start from the opposite proposition. What's it look like if the upset happens? The upset happens because almost the last thing Court McGee has is one hell of a squeeze. And Chiesa is a live by the sword, die by the sword submission artist. Like, he's one of the best offensive submission threats in the divisions in which he has competed for the course of his UFC run, but he's always been susceptible to them. Like, he's the guy that has 4 or 5 wins by Darce choke and at least a couple losses by Darce choke. He's completely big brothered good grapplers on the ground, and he's been caught by grapplers that aren't thought of as being on his level. That's Chiesa. It's part of what makes him super fun to watch, but it makes it tough to pick him as a favorite. Having said that, he should, I won't say style on McGee because it's not going to look stylish, but if he wanted to, he could just stay on the outside and box McGee up. And there aren't many people you can say that about for Michael Chiesa. Like, his striking at its best was okay. Like, he made pretty good use of his very long arms and legs, tried to keep things on the outside until it was time to be on the inside and get one of his, like little ankle picks or reach down, kind of collar tie and ankle pick and dump the guy over thing. But if he tries that on McGee, he's really, all he's doing is making it easier for McGee to get his real Hail Mary chance of winning, which is to grab a guillotine or pancake one of those takedowns and spin around to the back like a clock running backwards and slap on a rear naked choke. I don't think that's likely, but it's even less likely if Chiesa just decides to sprawl and brawl the guy. Man, this is tough. I'll save my tribute to Court McGee until after the fight. I don't want to give the guy a eulogy while he's still above ground, but I have the feeling Chiesa wins this pretty easily, and McGee is still just as tough as they come, but so was Tim Means.
Yeah.
Like, your chin can withstand getting punched. Nobody's chin is going to withstand getting cranked. I think Chiesa probably does tap McGee out. In fact, he probably is getting much the better of things on the feet. McGee finally decides to shoot a slow desperation takedown. Chiesa's all over it and either wraps him up in a front headlock and slaps on his trademark Darce choke or gets an anaconda choke, or spins to the back and we see another rear naked choke that turns into a face crank. I'll take Chiesa by second round submission here, and I'll be sad, even though I like both these guys.
Yeah, this fight seems so unnecessary. Both guys should just be retired. But Chiesa, Chiesa's on a nice little, was it 2-fight win streak right now?
Yeah.
I didn't give much credit for the Tony Ferguson fight, but I'm not convinced that Chiesa is still a top talent in the division, but beating Max Griffin is a quality win, know, and he showed he still has some game left in, which I was concerned. I still have big concerns about him. Obviously, his age, his injury history, his inactivity. I believe when it goes bad for him, it's going to go bad fast. But what he does, he's a southpaw. He's got good output on the feet. He's very unorthodox in his striking. He's always kind of been that way. There's a lot of looping punches. He kind of telegraphs his shots. He strikes to force his opponents back towards the cage where he likes to work. He has like a similar style that we just saw Andres Gustafsson do, but like to a lesser extent. Like, he's not going to go berserker to get to the clinch, but that's ultimately what his goal is. And some of that has to do with he's not really reacting to strikes too well, and that was a little bit before the Griffin fight. He looks a lot better now, but he doesn't check leg kicks too. I was back like the RDA fight. RDA trashed his legs with leg kicks. He's a fantastic grappler though. When he gets close to shooting range, he'll shoot immediately. His entries, they aren't great, but he has those like long arms to get a leg and get the fight to the ground. He gets his arms wrapped and he's super, like he's a big guy, but you look at Court McGee, you see like bulky, like guess is more like longer, but he's super strong. He just grabs a leg and he's just going to pull you right down to the ground. He uses his size well in the clinch where he can grind, and he's mentally strong to stay in there and do his thing. He also likes some trips. He's good at winning scrambles. He has a very like funky style wrestling game. He has a serious submission threat. He has like, I don't know, like a dozen subs in his career.
He does.
Though he isn't lights out in his grappling. He's been, sub 5 times himself. He's been open to Darce chokes and stuff. And some of that is the way he wrestles. He leads out with, his long arms because he's reaching with his arms so much, his neck's kind of there. So McGee, I mean, he said his recent neck surgery, he claims makes him feel so much better. And in fairness, he did look pretty damn good in this last fight. He's a wrestle boxer, but he's not a very good athlete. I mean, his hands are slow. He tries to make up for it with volume. He throws a lot of tight shots. He's got a good straight right. He likes to work the body. I'd say he has like some old man strength left in him. He showed his power against Claudio Silva and Ramiz Brahimaj. Obviously, the Brahimaj fight, has looked really good for him. His game is formed on being, physically able to eat shots and still close the distance and get the fight to the ground, where he's super, like he's a bull. He's very strong. He will wrestle, but I think his wrestling is overrated. If he gets the fight to the ground and, he's forcing his opponent back, he could shoot and get in there. But again, like I've seen him sprawled out, from distance. He's definitely much better at getting takedowns against the fence. He also doesn't have the best takedown defense. If he gets on top, he does have strong top pressure. He has no issue with stalling on top. The broadcast to their credit will even talk about that. The broadcast, you mentioned his squeeze. He does have a very strong squeeze. They always talk about that, but
I still think he has the pound for pound hardest handshake in MMA. I've experienced it, and it's like, I've shaken Derek Lewis's hand and I've shaken Court McGee's hand, and it's about the same.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool that he can squeeze, and I'm sure it hurts, but like he's not squeezing the right spots. He's you know what I mean? Like he's got like one submission in like what, 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
He does have good submission defense. I am worried about his chin. I mean, he was recently knocked out in recent fights, so I think McGee's best out of victory is to keep it standing and striking. I just think that's against his nature. I think he's going to try to grind, and Kris is just better at it. He's longer. I expect to get a lot of clinching, and Kris is the one getting the takedowns and winning. Give me Kris by decision.
Next up at UFC Atlanta, and at least as the card is constituted as of the beginning of fight week, the top prelim is a light heavyweight matchup between Paul Craig and Rodolfo Bellato. This fight was actually scheduled to take place about 5 or 6 weeks ago at UFC Vegas 107. We previewed it at that time. Keith, has anything happened to make you change your pick in that fight?
No, I don't think Paul Craig got better in the last 6 weeks. So
he's kind of a young prospect. He only has about 20 fights in the UFC. We might get it really. All right. Fair warning. This was previewed on one of the 2 preview shows where I was having sound issues. So the sound is not great, but neither is the fight. So you'll take it and you'll like it. We'll be back in a few minutes.
That brings us to the co-main event of UFC Fight Night 256. It is a light heavyweight contest between Paul Craig and Rodolfo Bellato. Craig, the 37-year-old Scot, is 17-9-1 overall. He is 9-9-1 in the UFC. He has fought at light heavyweight as well as briefly at middleweight, He is back up at light heavyweight here after a 3-fight losing streak at 185 pounds against Brendan Allen, Caio Borralho, and Bo Nickel. He has decided that his best future, or as far as the UFC is concerned, any future, lies back at the weight division where he originally made his bones. So he's back up at 205 pounds. He will be meeting Bellato. 29-year-old Brazilian is 12-2-1 overall. He's 1-0-1 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He fought on the Contender Series back in Season 6 in 2022, got knocked out by Vitor Petrino in a rematch of a regional fight of theirs. Both of his career losses so far are knockouts by Petrino. But at any rate, he fought again on Season 7. He won, and since then he has a win over Ior Bateria back in December of 2023, and back in February of this year at UFC 312, a majority draw against Jim Crute. So Bellato looking to get a clean win in calendar year 2025. He is favored to do so. Keith, what number does the line start with?
4.
You know what? I have him down at minus 500, but it actually ranged from like minus 475 to like minus 600. So close enough for horseshoes, close enough for an amalgamation of 8 different sports books that I look at. Yeah, Rodolfo Bellato minus 500, Paul Craig plus 375. For what it's worth, I am glad that Craig is back up at 205 pounds. Here's the thing. Well, actually, there are 2 things. One, Craig is a huge guy. He's another
current champ.
He's got to win over your current champ, a finish, no less. He's a huge guy, so dropping down to 185 didn't seem to make sense from a physical, mechanical standpoint. And then number 2, I mean, Paul Craig can be fun, but his best wins all involve his opponents making a big, stupid mistake. So his best future lies in the big, stupid division, like the one that Devin Tejada calls MMA's low fight IQ division, 205. Having said that, the 3-fight losing streak at 185, and even a couple of his last results at 205, like 3 years ago, show that we're coming to the end of the fun. When a fighter declines due to age, it typically comes a few different ways, and it's usually foreseeable. You know, fighters that depend on fast twitch athleticism, most of them fade away in their mid to late 30s. The rare exceptions, the Jose Aldos of the world, are just brilliant enough and skilled enough to retool their game and find success late. But for the most part, if you made your bones as a fast twitch freak, that's not built to last. If your game is built on relentless pace and cardio, we know what it looks like when that starts to abandon you. Only time will tell, but maybe we saw the first of that out of Bilal Muhammad last weekend. Paul Craig's game plan at its best, and remember that this guy was a top 10 light heavyweight for a while, and he does have an uncontroversial finish win over Magomed Ankalaev, your current champ, but even his best wins involved him getting his ass kicked for at least a round, usually most of 3 rounds, before catching somebody. Once your chin can no longer carry you to that point, it gets ugly fast. And I think that's where Craig is at. Because of that, this is a terrible stylistic matchup for him for 2 reasons. 1, Bellato hits like a truck. 2, his UFC highlight reel doesn't show it because he's been lumping people up with his fists, but he's actually a good grappler himself. He's not bad. He's a good top position grappler. He's not out of his depth in bottom position. Like if they end up in some weird collision and Craig lands in mount on Rodolfo Bellato, it's not fight over. So yeah, anytime someone's this big an underdog, I start from the proposition of, well, if the upset happens, what does it look like? And it's not impossible. This is light heavyweight, but there are no even very plausible routes to victory for Paul Craig. He's not going to be able to take even 1 round of Bellato hitting him in the face, let alone 3. And again, if they do go to the ground, unless Bellato is hurt or just extravagantly exhausted, it's not a given that Craig is just going to, sweep him and slap on a mounted triangle or something. Bellato's a good grappler. Because of that, yeah, this is bad. Give me Bellato by first round TKO. I'm going to say he just starts catching him early. Craig, to his credit, does try to fight to his frame. He tries to kick people. He tries to keep them off him, but I don't think he's going to be able to. He's incredibly slow-footed. I thought he made some gains technically in his striking, but they weren't huge gains, and they seem to have disappeared as he's gone from slow to slower. So I think Bellato just starts catching him quickly. This could be one of those fights that's over in like 45 seconds, but even if it takes 4 minutes and 45 seconds, I don't think we hear the horn for the first round.
Oh, man. Ben, I always thought you were an honest guy and you'd give an honest assessment, but you refused to tell the truth. You said all the things why Craig went up to 205. The truth is, Bo Nickel chased him out of the division.
He sure did.
Guys, I'm not breaking down Paul Craig. Paul Craig sucks. He sucks. I'm sorry. He's done. He's washed. He was in his prime. He felt like the luckiest fighter in recent memory, and he's past his prime. You're higher on Bellato than I am. He's huge for the weight class. So Craig moving up, is gonna hurt him even more because now, not that Craig was a small light heavyweight. I mean, he was a huge guy anyway.
Big dude, yeah.
He's not gonna have a size advantage, or go. I mean, usually you want the size advantage going down, but moving up, he's going against a massive guy right away. He looks like a heavyweight, but he's lumbering like a heavyweight. I think you're much higher on his striking than I am. I think he's very raw on the feet. I think he's kind of stiff. He does have good volume. You mentioned he does have good power. Defensively, I hate his DV pillars. He's very hittable. He keeps his chin high. He doesn't change his head except for moving it straight back. He hates being pressured, though. Craig really isn't at the point where he can pressure. He had a lot of shots from Pretoria. He struggled with the speed of Pretoria. I do like his calf kicks. He can close the distance. He can work in the clinch. Nice plumb clinch. I think that's something he could do really well against Paul Craig. Good dirty boxing. He will look for takedowns, but he's hardly a wrestler. Though he has solid defensive wrestling. If you take him down, you're much higher. I think you're right. He's a good grappler. He's a good top game. He's got 4 subs. You take him on his back, though. I think he struggles to get off his back. But if he's on top, he's got some mean ground and pound, and he's got good cardio. So there's the things I like about him, but I hate this fight. I think Craig is terrible. I mean, dude's so slow on his feet. He made Bo Nickel look like a prime Israel Adesanya, and people are talking about how bad Bo's striking is. So I don't think Bellato is that good. But I'm picking Bellato here. I mean, he could still win on the feet because of how bad Craig's striking is. I see Craig trying to get the fight to the ground and not getting there. I see Bellato catching him, possibly in the clinch, landing some big shots. You know what? I'm gonna say it's an ugly fight that goes the distance, and everyone jumps off the Bellato hype train. But I still think Bellato wins. Bellato by decision.
The 6-fight main card of UFC on ESPN 69 begins with a light heavyweight clash between Alonzo Menifield and Omar Sy. Menifield, the 37-year-old Texan, is 16-5-1 overall. He's 9-5-1 since joining the UFC as a 2-time veteran of Dana White's Contender Series. He won on the very first season and was not immediately signed. Then he lamped Deshaun Boatwright in 8 seconds on the second season. That was good enough to get him signed. And that was back when only one person per episode got signed. So I think it was him that got signed, and like Greg Hardy and Kennedy Zechikwu that didn't, even though they all knocked someone out in under 2 minutes. Anyway, that's trivia. Menifield, since being in the UFC, 9-5-1. He's coming in off a win. Picked up a split decision over Julius Walker back in February at UFC Fight Night Cejudo versus Song. That snapped a 2-fight losing streak for him in the form of knockout losses to Carlos Ulberg and Azamat Murzakanov. He will look to keep the good vibes going here against the undefeated C. C, a 29-year-old Frenchman training out of Bulgaria, a perfect 11-0 as a professional, a perfect 2-0 since joining the UFC. He fought twice last year, tapping out George Tokos back in May, and then coming back at UFC Fight Night Moicano versus Saint-Denis and picking up a unanimous decision over Da Woon Jung. He will look to continue his rise up the light heavyweight ranks at just the right time for a division very much in search of new faces in the top 15. He is favored to get it done. Keith, what number does the line start with?
I'm assuming it's pretty big. Because 3?
Omar C, minus 550.
Oh,
Alonzo Menifield plus 400. Here's the thing. My initial thought was that is bananas. Just the puncher's chance does mean something here. Alonzo Menifield is on the wrong side of his 30s, and even in his absolute prime, he was a dangerous but flawed striker. But is there anybody that you're just comfortable flat out saying hits harder than Alonzo Menifield? There are some that might, but if you tell me Alonzo Menifield is the hardest hitter in the light heavyweight division, I'm not going to laugh at you. And for what it's worth, he usually puts himself in the best position to at least try to get that that power onto his opponent's chin. And he's not a guy that just walks forward and slugs with both hands. He knows how to kickbox. He has very good kicks to all levels. I mean, he usually kind of focuses on the legs and body, but he can throw up a fast high kick. He has the legs of an NFL halfback. I'm sure his high kick is just a terrifying thing to experience, even in training with pads and stuff on. The problem is, for as dangerous as he is offensively, he has been prone to getting caught by similarly well-schooled kickboxers, especially ones that have reach on them. The getting flattened by Carlos Ulberg in 12 seconds was a bit of a surprise, but getting zapped by Carlos Ulberg was not a surprise at all, because Ulberg is cut from the very mold of the people that give Alonzo Menifield trouble. The problem is, so is Omar C. And I don't think C is Carlos Ulberg from a standpoint of accuracy, athleticism, power, but he's close. I don't think he's quite as technical as Ulberg, but he's close. And even though he's relatively unproven in MMA, you can kind of call him part of the future of the division, because anybody that shows up in the UFC light heavyweight division right now and wins their first 3 or 4 fights is probably going to get a top 15 opponent the next time out. This is the next step towards that. Really, if he knocks Menifield out, he's going to get a top 15 opponent in his next fight. I'm well aware of the upset potential here. Again, Menifield hits like an absolute truck. For as long as the fight is going, whether it's 12 seconds or 15 minutes, he is going to give himself every chance to knock C out. There's also always the possibility that he might try to sneak in a takedown on C. He's capable of doing it. Not in space. Like he usually tries it against the fence when he does. Doesn't try it very often. He might be well served to do so here. We don't know much about how C will react to that, but I'm not guessing that that's what's going to happen. I think Menifield's probably going to go out with his shield or on it. My pick is on it. Give me C by second round knockout. It'll be a banger of a fight until then. And when the finish comes, I think Menifield's going to be out cold. That's kind of what we're getting from him these days.
Yeah, it's funny, like when you think of this division, it really is a full transformation, because it wasn't that long ago that Menifield was like the rising guy, and now he's, and I know he was never like a top prospect, but you know what I mean, like a newer face in the division, and now you got C as this like hot prospect to watch out for. Menifield, you know, he moves well, just for guy his size. He likes to fight behind high guard defense. He likes to work from distance, which is really funny considering he's this short a guy. He has, as you mentioned, he has really big power. I mean, we saw that against Misha Serkinov, Jimmy Crute. He will load up and tries to end the fight with every single blow. He's trying to land the perfect shot. He will overstrike, or overthrow his strikes, I should say. So he's open to be countered. He can it countered also be taken down because of it. He tends to fight in spurts, so he'll sit back and also he'll just conserve all his energy, and then he just like explodes. Due to his height, he has struggled to get inside his guys. Like I always go back to like the Dustin Jacoby fight. Jacoby had success by moving him and keeping him on the edge of his punches. He will throw a lot of kicks, and despite being a shorter guy, he'll throw a lot of high kicks. He throws some hard calf kicks. He showed improved takedown defense over the years. And really his overall grappling altogether. He's not a strong wrestler, but I mean, he caught a submission against Jimmy Crute. He caught him with a guillotine. He has gassed out in the past, but to his credit, his gas tank is drastically improved. He gassed a little bit against Julius Walker, but he still found a way to dig deep and get that win. Now, you mentioned his durability. That's the thing that's kind of worried especially when you get the faster, very athletic guys in the division. You mentioned Olberg, obviously, Mirzakhano's the guy. Those guys both put him out. I mean, this guy. I mean, he's a fantastic athlete. He's super well rounded. He moves well. He's a good boxer. Straight shots down the pipe. He has really nice power in his hands. He can knock you out with either hand. He's got a big kicking game. Throws a lot of kicks, though sometimes he won't set them up. For a guy who's known for his striking and stuff, he's not a bad wrestler. He's a pretty good wrestler. I mean, he looks for a lot of takedowns. He's good again the fight to the ground. When he's been taken out, I've seen him sweep. He's got some slick back takes. He has a submission threat. He has 4 subs on his record. If he's on top, he lands hard ground and pound. He's hard to take down. He did gas a little against Duan Jones. That's a little concerning. I've never been a Menifield guy, but to his credit, he does have some dog in him. Like he's overcome guys that I believe are more talented just by being biting them down on his mouthpiece late in fights and finding ways and just digging deep. But I don't see it in this fight. I'm picking C. I mean, he's got much higher upside, obviously, at this point in their careers, really ever in their careers. I just think he's better than Menifield everywhere. I'm gonna say that Menifield takes the damage. I think he gets rocked. I'm not gonna say he goes out. I'm gonna say he makes it all the way, but C in a pretty dominant decision.
We head next to the middleweight division for a matchup of former college wrestlers likely to feature relatively little wrestling as Mansour Abdul-Malik squares off against Cody Brundage. Abdul-Malik, the 27-year-old Marylander, is a perfect 8-0 as a professional. He's 2-0 since joining the UFC out of Season 8 of Dana White's Contender Series. In that time, he has knockouts of Duško Todorovic and Nick Klein. The most recent of those, the Klein fight, was at UFC Fight Night Cejudo versus Song in February. He'll look to make it 3 straight, drive his professional record to 9-0 at the expense of Brundage. 31-year-old Michigan native is 11-6 with 1 no contest overall. He's 5-5 with 1 no contest since joining the UFC as a veteran of Season 4 of Dana White's Contender Series. He lost on the Contender Series, went and won a fight in LFA and got the call up anyway. He is coming in off a win. He fought back in March at UFC Fight Night Cup versus Almabayev, where he knocked out Julian Marquez in the first round. He'll look to make it 2 in a row, put his demoralizing loss to super prospect Bo Nickel further in the rear view. Abdul-Malik is your favorite, Keith. What number does the line start with?
4.
Mansour Abdul-Malik minus 700. Cody Brundage plus 500.
They figure that Cody Brundage will stick the back of his head in the way of punches.
Okay, so I made the offhand quip ahead of this fight that it's 2 former college wrestlers that may not wrestle a whole lot. Is that just a punchline, or is that how you actually see the fight playing out and who gets it done?
I don't know if Cody Barnes really was a college wrestler. Like, was he like a recruit, or was he a guy who like went to school and like, hey, there's wrestling practice, and he shows up, and be like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, I'll get my varsity letter or something like that. Is that I just, I mean, Cody Brundage, he's, to his credit, he's got a better record in the UFC than he should have. He's on the feet. He's a taekwondo style striker. He kind of hangs his hands low. He can hit. I mean, he showed it against Julian Marquez. He's got power. He loves throwing kicks. He throws kicks everywhere. He likes question mark kicks. Like I said, I joked about his wrestling background. Like, I think his wrestling is grossly overrated. I wish they stopped mentioning that he was a college wrestler. I've seen him sprawled out and not cutting angles, staying on bottom. I always go back to like the Dolce Leon Bola fight, just grabbing a leg and eating nonstop punches against a guy who's not really good stuff at takedowns. But Brundage has this rare ability to get his back of his head punched in. But even like he tried taking Cedric Dumas down, and he struggled to get him down. He does need to improve his control. He couldn't keep Dumas down. He's a bad defensive wrestler. I mean, Nick Maximoff took him down. Jacob Malkoun took him down with ease. I mean, obviously he had no answer for bone knuckles wrestling. He also makes it worse by jumping guillotine. He did that against Dumas. He needs to improve his get-up game. I mean, he almost got armbarred by Zach Reese. He was getting murdered on the ground against Jacob Malkoun before the disqualification. He has really slowed down late in a bunch of fights, and I don't trust his durability. Even a win in his last fight, he was rocked by Marquez early in that fight. So Abdul-Malik, I mean, he's a big middleweight. He can fight out of both stances. He's a high output striker, though he was a little gun shy against Nick Klein. But he works behind a Kris jab. He follows with big hooks. He can get wild, but he can crack. He's got some power. He throws a lot of high kicks. He hates being pressured. That's something that maybe Brundage can be able to do on the feet. He's a good wrestler. He's a former college wrestler. He likes body lock takedowns. He has some scary ground and pound, like some of the best I've seen. I mean, he smashed Todorovic with some mean ground and pound. Again, Todorovic is what he is. He has gassed out in the past, probably just because of how big he is. To his credit, in his last 5 fights, Brundage only has 1 loss. I don't think that's going to matter against Abdul-Malik. Malik is just better than him everywhere. I think Malik dominates Brundage. I do envision some wrestling. I envision Malik on top, Abdul-Malik on top, raining big blows down on Brundage, who's like pinned against the cage, gassed out, and he's just eating big ground and pound. Give me Abdul-Malik by second round TKO from ground and pound.
I'm with you top to bottom here, so I won't belabor the thing. I think it might actually get done in the first round. Just Brundage's defensive wrestling being what it is, his durability being what it is, I think we get a TKO by ground and pound. I think we get it in the first round. And yeah, I made the joke about the wrestling, but for what it's worth, I think it probably only goes to the ground once Malik has dropped Brundage on the feet. I think he's not a polished product as a striker, but already has good hand speed and numbing power. I think he catches Brundage on the feet, finishes it on the ground. Next up on the UFC Atlanta main card, the first of 3 former champs on the main card looks for his measure of redemption as Cody Garbrandt takes on Raoni Barcelos. Garbrandt, the 33-year-old Ohio native, 14-6 overall, 9-6 since joining the UFC. He is, of course, a former bantamweight champ, had a famous, if somewhat one-sided rivalry with TJ Dillashaw. He's 9-6 in the UFC. He's 9-5 at bantamweight. He did try a one-off fight at flyweight. The UFC did him no favors by matching him up against not only a contender, but one of the biggest flyweights in the division. So it probably felt about the same when Kai Kara-France knocked him out. But he abandoned that experiment. He is coming in off a loss. It was at UFC 300 last April, and even though it was at 135 pounds, it was against another giant flyweight in Davison Figueiredo. He is a man haunted by flyweights, apparently. He's going to look to get back in the win column here against Barcelos. 38-year-old Brazilian, 19-5 overall, 8-5 since joining the UFC as the outgoing RFA, before it was half of LFA, bantamweight champ. That's how long he's been in the UFC. He's on a 2-fight win streak. consisting of his lone cage appearance of last year, which was a third-round submission of Christian Quinones, and then his frankly stunning upset of previously undefeated super prospect Peyton Talbot at UFC 311 in January. He pulled off the massive upset and, at least for the moment, reversed the whole narrative on where his career had been headed. He'll look for his unlikely sounding third win in a row here and get a former champ scalp. He is favored to do so, but not by too much. He's minus 180, Garbrandt plus 150. Keith, if there's one word I could use to describe this matchup and these guys, it is brittle. These guys feel brittle. Saying somebody's washed up, it's...
I'm brittle.
Well, it's unkind, but also it's too general. There's a specific way that these guys are aging, because in the right moment, especially on offense, they can look pretty reminiscent of their former selves. But when I say brittle, I mean the durability appears to be gone. The recoverability from damage, the gas tank. I mean, Garbrandt didn't always need it because he was such a knockout artist, but incredible cardio to be able to go a high pace. Barcelos, the same, especially for a guy kind of like as muscular as him with his fight style, a very durable guy. That seems to have gone by the wayside for both of them. The defensive reflexes seeming to go. And because of that, this is the kind of fight that's just a total bastard fight to pick, because if you're wrong, the guy you pick to win is probably going to lose in some brutal way. That's what I mean by a brittle fight. But having said that, it's incredible that Barcelos pulled off the upset against Talbot. But it doesn't tell me that, oh, Honey Barcelos is back. That's always the easy overreaction to take when an aging fighter pulls off a big upset, pulls off a quote vintage performance. That's not the case. Just he ran into Talbot at the right time for him, wrong time for Talbot. Talbot left the arena with plenty of stuff to take back to the drawing board. He may be back or he may not, but it doesn't mean that Honey Barcelos is suddenly the 2016 version of himself again. That's just not the case. And hell, the way he beat Talbot didn't even really look like his best performances on his way up. But having said that, even if I don't think the 2-fight win streak means he's absolutely back, I really don't trust Garbrandt. I asked you last week, kind of tongue-in-cheek, whether Vicente Luque or Kelvin Gastelum was the oldest 33-year-old in the UFC. I'd throw Garbrandt in there as well. He has an incredible amount of wear and tear for a guy that has 20 career fights. He has the wear and tear of a guy with 40 career fights. And that's troubling, because he is a guy whose game did run on elite athleticism and durability on his way up. You know, he's a former college wrestler who actually got booted from college wrestling because he kept getting in fights, which terrible for wrestling. But honestly, if you're building an MMA fighter in a lab, give me a guy that was a promising college wrestler but couldn't stop getting in fist fights. It's like, all right, that's a pretty good background for a mixed martial artist. He turned into a sensational boxer. The night he took the belt from Dominic Cruz is still, to me, one of the most impressive single performances in UFC title fight history. Just the way he took the guy that nobody could seem to lay a finger on and one of the smartest fighters in the history of the sport, and just had him looking out of his depth, unable to make adjustments. It was incredible. The Cody Garbrandt who could do that is no longer. He's no longer here. He still has huge power. He still has huge one-shot power. He nuked Brian Kelleher a little over a year ago, but that one-shot power, it no longer feeds the rest of his game. Now he's a guy that, well, he's gonna nuke you with one shot, or he's probably gonna lose. that makes it tough for me to pick him over Barcelos here. Even though Barcelos is older calendar-wise, I don't think he's particularly more shop-worn. And after the Peyton Talbot fight, again, I don't think Barcelos is back physically, but he looked like a guy who is willing to come up with a game plan and follow that game plan based on what his opponent gives him. Because of that, I do think this is his fight to win. I'm going to guess that he might actually look to take Garbrandt down, maybe exploit Garbrandt's defensive wrestling and grappling, which was never quite as good as his offensive ground game. But even if this stays on the feet the whole time, they both hit hard and they are both very willing punchers. But again, Barcelos, despite being older, I think he might be a little quicker on the draw, and I think he can take a punch better than Garbrandt now. So this will probably be a fun fight for as long as it lasts, but I do think Barcelos is going to catch Garbrandt. Give me Barcelos by second round TKO.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this fight because of everything you said. I mean, I want Garbrandt to be good. When he wins, it's fun. I mean, when I think of all-time great performances in the Octagon, his title win against Dominic Cruz is I mean, I think about that. I think about Anderson Silva against Rich Franklin. Somehow that got added in this show twice in one night. I think Randy Couture versus Tim Sylvia in his title fight. Obviously, there's a bunch of those, but you get my point. To be that and to be where he is now, he there's still things I like about him. He's still athletic. He still has good footwork. His hand speed is still pretty quick. He's still explosive. He sets up his shots with a lot of feints, but his output has dropped. He seems he can't pull the trigger as much. Some of that has to do with probably just the mental. He's taken a lot of damage and understanding he's got to protect his chin and be smarter in fights. He worked behind a good jab. He's got the tight boxing. He likes to throw it out in the pocket, which I'm not sure is the wise decision. But he does, he still has that short right hand that he can put people out with, and he still has some power. He's open to leg kicks, doing his very heavy boxing style. He is a decent wrestler. I do think his wrestling is overrated due to his takedowns against Dominic Cruz and stuff. But he's still got some good entries. He uses wrestling to beat Trevin Jones recently. He's harder to take down. He used to be good at getting back to his feet, but that was not the case against David Silveira. He really struggled. Barcelos, I mean, as he's gotten older, his volume has dropped. I don't think it's a durability issue. I think it's more of just pacing himself, as his cardio is probably not there. He's became more strategic, like I always say, like the Andre Arlovski's ability to slow down a fight. He is a technical striker. He likes to slip and rip, but he likes to counter with his right hand. He still has some decent hand speed. We showed that against Trevin Jones. He fakes a lot and then follows up with straight shots down the pike. He's shown lately that he still has some pop in his hands. He's got some hard calf kicks, though he's actually one of the guys who doesn't check leg kicks. To go back to Umar Nurmagomedov really beat up his legs with kicks. He mixes strikes and wrestling together well. I mean, for BJJ practitioner, he can wrestle. He's got a good top game. He's a great grappler. I always say this. I mean, he's one of the few people that have out-grappled a Nurmagomedov. Yeah, I mean, sure, it was Saeed Nurmagomedov, but it's still Nurmagomedov. He's got some good back takes. He is a submission threat. I said his output has slowed down more to cardio than his durability, but I still have obviously worry about his durability due to his age and Umar Nurmagomedov knocking him out. I was worried about his cardio. And like I said, I think his pace has dropped a little bit of that. But, I mean, it looked great against Peyton Talbot, who is on the gas. It would be good for the UFC if Garbrandt was still good, but it's been 9 years since he was special. I think Barcelos dominates him. I think he's going to tag him up on the feet. I also think he might get some takedowns. I think Barcelos makes I think Garbrandt makes a mistake, and I think Barcelos subs him. I'm going to say Barcelos locks in like a rear naked choke in the second round. I'm locking it up, dude. This is my lock of the night. Max bet it.
Third from the top at UFC Atlanta is a middleweight contest between Edmen Shahbazyan and Andre Petroski. Shahbazyan, the 27-year-old Southern California native, 14-5 overall, 7-5 since joining the UFC out of season 3 of Dana White's Contender Series. He has alternated wins and losses for his last 6 fights, dating back almost 4 full years. He's coming in off a win. He knocked out Dylan Budka in a minute and a half at UFC Fight Night Cannonier versus Rodriguez back in February. So he would love to get his second straight win and break that streak. He will need to get past Petroski in order to do so. 33-year-old Pennsylvania native, 13-3 overall, 8-2 since joining the UFC out of season 29 of The Ultimate Fighter. He is on a 3-fight win streak. Since getting crushed with a body kick from Jacob Malkoun a little over a year ago, he has 3 straight wins over Josh Fremd, Dylan Budka, and Rodolfo Vieira. The most recent of those, the Vieira fight, was back in February at the very same Cannonier versus Rodriguez card. I'm pretty sure Keith and I matched these two up on the recap, and the UFC for once listened to us. Keith, your favorite is minus 180. Your underdog plus 150. Who are they?
Petroski's the favorite.
Shahbazyan is actually the favorite. He's minus 180. Petroski is 150. And I'm going to predict that this is our second unanimous upset pick of the night because I've got Petroski in this one. I was mildly surprised to see the line.
Me too.
And I know that one of my difficulties, one of my mental fallacies that I always have to be careful of in analyzing these fights and watching 600 fights a year just in the UFC, doing previews and recaps for 42 cards, is being too slow to change my perception of a fighter. Edmen Shahbazyan is not the busted prospect he seemed to be 3.5 years ago. And he wasn't even at the time. In hindsight, he was way out of his depth against 3 solidly top 10 fighters. Like, these were not iffy borderline guys. Like Derek Brunson, Jack Hermanson, and Nasruddin Imavov have all been top 5 fighters at one point in their careers. Imavov and Brunson have been in the title picture. It may not have been too much too soon. That may have been too much for any time. Like, there's no shame if Edmen Shahbazyan is never on the level of those guys. But even as he is alternated wins and losses since the Imavov fight, he's beating the low-level guys, and he's losing to the decent ones really badly. Anthony Hernandez is very good. Gerald Meerschaert is decent, and Meerschaert, it's the way that Meerschaert beat Shahbazyan, because Shahbazyan came to the UFC as this fast-twitch freak knockout artist who obviously also had the judo background, the Ronda Rousey connection, the Glendale Armenian thing. Getting boxed up by Gerald Meerschaert at age 26 when Meerschaert is the world's oldest 36-year-old is not a good look. The things that were bad about Shahbazyan have improved to an extent, but they're not great, because his problems before were he didn't have great cardio, and he also just was terrible at making adjustments and coming up with a plan B if he couldn't just blow the guy out of the water with a flurry of punches in 90 seconds. That's gotten a little better. He's gotten a little more measured. Going to a real good gym in Extreme Couture has definitely helped with that. The other issue with Shahbazyan was that despite his crushing knockout power, he wasn't that physically strong a guy, which makes sense. He was this 20-year-old that by middleweight standards was actually kind of willowy looking, and people like Brunson and Imavov just bodied him. Andre Petroski is not on the level of 2020 Derek Brunson or Nasruddin Imavov, but he has more ways to beat Shahbazyan than Meerschaert does. Petroski is an absolute physical hoss of a guy that fights in a way to put that forward. He wants to wrestle you. And if he can't wrestle you down, he wants to just have his hands on you at all times. Shahbazyan's best result still comes zapping people in space, just with his fast hands, fast kicks, nasty one-shot power. I don't think Petroski's going to give him a chance to do that. And if he does tag Petroski a few times, Petroski's a pretty durable guy. I mean, he's not this incredibly granite chin guy, but he's pretty durable. And he's the kind of guy that he's shown that he will get tired late in fights, but he's still effective when he's tired. He's that kind of guy where, yeah, he's this big guy just decked out with muscle. If a tough fight goes to the third round, he is breathing hard, but he's still effective, just slowed down a little bit. Whereas I don't have a whole lot of faith that Shahbazyan is. Shahbazyan still has yet to win a fight in the UFC that went to the third round. Because of that, all the variables point to upset here for me. If Shahbazyan lamps Petroski in 90 seconds, fair play to him, and I will issue a formal retraction on the recap, but I don't see it happening. Give me Petroski to pound out a tired, discouraged, and lumped up Edmen Shahbazyan in the third round. It's a thing where Shahbazyan might win the first round, but Petroski is just going to start rolling downhill on him like a boulder from there. Ugly second round, super ugly third round, and yeah, probably TKO ground and pound in round 3.
Yeah, wow. This fight is very intriguing. I'll say this about Shahbazyan. I mean, people gave up on him, and you know, he got fraud checked, as people say. Which I hate that saying, but he's still only 27 years old. Still, it's crazy. I mean, this guy was managed by Ronda Rousey when Ronda Rousey was a thing in the UFC. That seemed forever ago. Obviously, he's a big guy. He's came into his frame. He's a long and lanky kind of guy. He likes to box. He works by a really long jab. He's accurate. He showed a great step back right hand in his last fight. He's good at measuring his opponents with big shots. Good at wrapping his punches around his opponent's like high guard defense. He likes his check left hook. That's his best strike. He's just now really entering his power year. So watch for that. He now fights at a much slower pace to try to conserve his energy, which obviously has been a biggest issue he's had in his career. He works the body a lot. He beat up Dolce Limbo with body kicks. Defense has been an issue for him. He's very hittable. He doesn't keeps his chin high, doesn't move his head. He doesn't check leg kicks. He's a guy who he's supposed to be a decent grappler. He's not a good wrestler. He's a weak defensive wrestler. I mean, yeah, it was a while ago, but you mentioned those good big good wrestlers, Jack Hermanson, Derek Brunson, him, and he struggled to get off the bottom of them. And cardio has been such an issue. I'm not sold that he's fixed it. I mean, he gassed against Brunson. He gassed against, Darren Stewart. It was a low-level UFC talent when he fought him. He was gassed in that fight. Obviously, Jack Hermanson. He gassed against Jared Meerschaert and was quickly subbed by Meerschaert. Petroski, he's a southpaw, though he will switch stances. He's your classic wrestle boxer. He throws hard, tight hooks. Despite being like this super jacked alpha male with this great beard, he lacks one punch power. That's not really known, though he looks like he should be a guy that could, knock guys out. He's also very hittable. He doesn't slip punches that well. He's been cracked a lot. Michelle Pereira cracked him. Jacob Alcoon cracked him. Both knocked him out. He's a very good wrestler, though. He loves his double legs. He's good again to the second level. If he missed a double leg, he'll switch to a single, run the pipe, get you down there. Very relentless to get the fight to the ground. He's got great top control. He just loves to drown his opponent from top. Doesn't care about being booed. He'll move to a better position on the ground. He's a specialist. He loves head attacks, head and arm chokes. He showed improved get-up game against Rodolfo when he was taken down. His cardio is I've always questioned his cardio, but his cardio is way better than I thought. I mean, he's a guy, he looks like he's breathing hard, he's slowing down. It's like a little bit of that, like when people talk about like Dracus Duplessis.
Derek Lewis.
Even though looking being completely gassed, he'll go hard all 15 minutes. As far as finishing, I think Shabazian, I was going to say I think Shabazian is better than people think, but apparently Vegas thinks he's really good. I was going to kind of like give him a compliment. Like I'm not completely giving up on this guy, but I think this is a horrendous stylistic matchup for him. I'm shocked by this line. Like I thought this was one of the easiest fights to pick on the card. Like, Petrosky's going to take him down, and he's going to beat the shit out of him on the ground. I see Edmund Gasson. I think Petrosky's going to sub him with like a head and arm choke in the second round. Like I don't know. I mean, those guys in Vegas are smart, but you said, what'd you say? Edmund was a negative what?
He's around minus 180. Petrosky around plus 150.
It's not even like a pick 'em. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
If you told me to guess, I was going to guess like Shabazian was like -2. I mean, Petrosky was like a negative 280 favorite. I think this is an easy fight. I just said my last fight that's my lock. I'm switching it, dude. Like you tell me I'm getting plus odds on Petrosky. I don't know if I've done a lock yet or max bet yet where you're betting the underdog, dude. Forget like betting like life savings. Like go rob a bank, knock over an ATM, something. Get as much money you possibly can, and throw it on Petrosky. Petrosky's gonna win this fight. This is a lock. This is no brainer. Shabazian. I mean, he's got to avoid big punches from Shabazian for I don't know, a minute and a half. I don't know, maybe 3 minutes. But the problem is he's gonna push Shabazian down on his back early in this fight, and he's gonna do his thing. Petrosky lock, second round submission.
No, to avoid conflict of interest, do not rob a bank in Rhode Island, please.
Not my city.
Go to Providence. That brings us to the co-main event of UFC on ESPN 69, a women's flyweight matchup between Rose Namajunas and Miranda Maverick. Namajunas, the 32-year-old Milwaukee native training out of Colorado, 13-7 overall, 11-6 since joining the UFC out of season 20 of The Ultimate Fighter. The bulk of her UFC run, of course, took place at strawweight, where she became a two-time champ, but she moved up to flyweight since her title loss to Carla Esparza 3 years ago. She is 2-2 in her new division, and she is coming in off a loss. She fought most recently last November at UFC Fight Night Moreno versus Albazi, where she dropped a 5-round decision to Erin Blanchfield. She will look to get back in the win column here, still at her relatively young age, angling for a title shot in her new division, but the same could be said of her opponent, Maverick. 27-year-old Missouriite, also training out of Colorado now, 15-5 overall, 8-3 since joining the UFC as an Invicta flyweight standout. She is on a 4-fight win streak since getting, frankly, kind of blanked by Jasmine Jasudavicius 2 years ago. She has 4 straight wins over Priscilla Cachoeira, Andrea Lee, Dione Barboza, and Jamey-Lyn Horth. The most recent of those, the Horth fight, was back in December at UFC on ESPN, Covington versus Buckley. She'll look to make it 5 in a row, look to make her own case to at least be on the short call list for a flyweight title shot. She is not favored to get it done. Namajunas is your favorite. What number does the line start with, Keith?
I'm going to say it's close. Negative 180.
You're not too far off. Namajunas is minus 260. Maverick plus 215. I'm going to flip this to you, but I'll say this. Miranda Maverick is on a 4-fight win streak, and while she clearly hasn't faced anybody on Namajunas' level yet, there's no smoke and mirrors about what she's done. Like, yeah, tell me how you see this fight playing out. Tell me. Here's the bonus question. does the UFC hope Namajunas wins?
Oh, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say Maverick because, I mean, if Namajunas, she lost, took us, say she was off for a really long time. I mean, her last fight was the Carlos Esparza. Say she has some back injury or something where she's out for a long time, and she decided to move up. And I would say yes, they would want Namajunas to win. But at this point, even if Namajunas beats Miranda Maverick, does that convince people that she's back, that she's going to win the title, that she's going to be a threat? Is probably not. I mean, she's lost a lot. If Rose Namajunas was in her prime, this was, I don't know, what was her prime, 3 years ago, something like that. We kind of said, oh, negative, whatever you said, -2 and change. She would be a -400, -500 favorite.
If instead of going into the Esparza fight 3 years ago, she was like, I'm moving up to 125. Like, I've cleaned out this division. I'm now, 2-0 against Zhang. I'm 2-0 against Joanna. I won against Andrade. Forget it, Esparza. I'm moving up to 125. Her first fight is Miranda Maverick. Yeah, she's like -400.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. So, I don't have a good read on Rose Namajunas right now. And it's more mental than physical. She's a good athlete. She's not a good. She's a great athlete. She's one of the best athletes in the history of the female division. She's one of the best fighters in the female. I mean, I don't know if she's on the Mount Rushmore, but she ain't. She's pretty damn close. You know what I mean? She's they keep building the mountain to make a second row. She's definitely on that. Historically, she has some of the best footwork in the history of the game. Sometimes she moves too much. I mean, we saw that in that terrible fight against Esparza where she was, not engaging. And that's we've talked about this before about Namajunas is one of those ones if isn't getting hurt, she doesn't feel like she's losing. She's a good distance striker. She's technically sound. She can fight out of both stances. I've said this before. She has the rear ability to land strikes while backing up. She's I like her technique. She's got quick hands. She's got a great jab. One of the best jabs. I still think one of the best jabs in the game. She's good at slipping shots and then countering with clean shots. The reason why she isn't as good as she once was, and this is, I said the mental part of it, and we'll get to that, and motivational too, kind of thing. But it's also her volume. I mean, her volume has done a magic show. Like, it has disappeared like you wouldn't believe. I mean, there's no combinations anymore. She also hasn't shown any power at 125 so far. She does have a big kicking game. She's got a great high kick. I mean, obviously she won the title against Weili with Weili. Yeah. She won the title against Weili with a high kick. I felt like did she catch? I know she caught Joanna, but did she hit a high kick against Joanna too?
I remember like a 4-punch combo.
Okay, it wasn't a high kick. Okay, yeah. All right. I'm trying to remember, man. Sometimes so obviously she has those kicking game. She's a good wrestler. Gets a lot of takedowns of fights. Good at winning scrambles. She advances position on the ground. She has no issues installing. We saw that recently against Amanda Hebus. She's super flexible. She can get subs from on top and bottom. Got great back takes. The problem is being smaller in the division. I don't know how strong she is. Like, does that affect her wrestling as much? And also her ability to get up. She used to be very hard to hold down. She'd get up really quickly. I don't know if that's the case again, especially someone like Maverick, who's strong too. Like, not just a quality flyweight, but strong. Like, that's part of her game. She also did something very surprising. She gassed out against Aaron. She looked good against Aaron Blanchard, and then she kind of slowed down and gassed out, and that's what cost her the fight. And that's extremely concerning because it wasn't a really high-paced fight, especially early. Maverick, I don't think I have the best read on Maverick either. Though she was part of that like run of young fighters coming in that division all at the same time, and she's kind of the left-out person. It was, if I'm trying to remember who it was.
I mean, she's lost to the three others, like Manon Fiorot, Macy Barber, and Erin Blanchfield. she's lost to the other three.
I know a lot of people thought she should have won that Barbara fight, but yeah, it's weird. I've never, I mean, probably because she's so much older than for like I don't look at her as the prospect, but yeah, you got my point though. So Maverick, I mean, she's very inconsistent. Like I really don't know if she could still. I mean, she's still young, so she can be, but I don't know if she's a top talent or she's just a mid-level card fighter, or upper middle card fighter, and that's not a diss, that's still a very talented fighter. She's a good athlete. She's southpaw. She has like karate style. She moves and she moves well, and she likes to like stick and move style. She tries to land and then escape before being countered. She also throws a lot of single strikes, and she'll load up on her strikes. Probably the best part of her game is her like Holly Holm side push kick. She does that a lot. She is open to counters because she'll throw naked leg kicks. She likes to close the distance and use her strength to wear an opponent in the clinch. I mean, I go back to like one of her best shows, not to get competition, but what she was doing when she got to the clinch and was just elbowing the shit out of Luana Joshua. She mixed striking and takedowns together well. She's a solid wrestler. She'll look for takedowns a lot. I was surprised that she struggled to get Jamey-Lyn Horth down in their fight, but she has some quick entries. She likes grabbing a single and running the pipe. She's one of the ones she'll stress position, then do damage, then submission, which I like that. She's got good top control. One of her best, probably the best performance of her career was her grappling against Jillian Robinson, winning big grappling exchanges. Probably the best win of her career, and it aged really well. But like she isn't like extremely dominant grappling. We saw what Erin Blanchfield did to her and what Jasmine Jasovicius did to her, both beat her up on the ground. To her credit though, both those fighters are really special. She has 7 submission wins, though she will like lose position chasing submission. No, that's not true. I think I'll give that one fight, but she will struggle to get back up. As far as prediction goes, I mean, like I said, if this was Namajunas prime, I would feel so comfortable taking it. I'd be like, this is a mismatch, but Namajunas is clearly declining. Like I said, I think some of it's physical, but a lot of it I think is motivational. She's always been kind of like a weird, quirky kind of person. Kind of shies away from media and everything. I wonder if she's just fighting to get paid now, and it's not in self-belief that I could still be the best one, or that she wants to be that she wants to make the discipline to do that. That said, I still think she's probably better than Miranda. I see her landing like a jab from distance. Miranda tries to wrestle. It's Namajunas who actually wins the wrestling exchanges. I expect to see Miranda on her back for large portions of the fight, maybe even give it up her back, and Namajunas is, on her back or stuff like that. There's only a 3-round fight, right? Yeah, one of these weird personal circumstances. I'll say Namajunas by decision.
But now I'm going to make dead sure.
Yeah, no, they didn't say anything. Like, we would have known.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I can understand why Rose Namajunas seems so kind of ambivalent about her career, because I feel ambivalent about it too. On the one hand, she is clearly a better fighter at 115 than at 125, but yeah, there are still flashes of the dazzling fighter that she was just a relatively few years ago. She's one of those fighters that has a little bit of that. At her best, she had a little bit of that BJ Penn magic where it just seemed like she could do anything and it seemed effortless.
That's a good comparison to her style. That's a good one.
Well, and it is because same as Penn,
she got a little crazy in her too. So
she was she was a grappling specialist who seemingly almost overnight became one of the best strikers in the division too. Like BJ Penn might have been the best grappler and best boxer at lightweight in his prime. Namajunas has 5 submissions and 2 knockouts, I think, in her career. But the thing is, she has the 5 submissions and then she has the 2 knockouts. Like, going into the Jędrzejczyk fight, it seemed to all the world like, okay, this is a striker versus grappler matchup. Either Namajunas is going to find a way to get Joanna down and take her back and choke her out, or she's going to go down like every other ground fighter that tried to fight Joanna and just absorb 180 head strikes and look like Quasimodo by the end of the fight, like she did to Jessica Penne, like she did to Karolina Kowalkiewicz, to all of them. And then all of a sudden Namajunas comes out and just completely outclasses Joanna in like 30 seconds on the I mean, I know the fight lasted like a minute and a half, but like a 30-second sequence just showed how far her footwork had come along, showed how smooth and straight her punches were. I like that you mentioned that she is absolutely an elite athlete, because she doesn't, by the eyeball test, I mean, she's a little more muscular now, but by the eyeball test during her prime, she's not the one you'd pick out of a lineup as, this might be the hardest hitter in the division right now. Like, it's funny that the hardest hitter in the division was probably either her or Jessica Andrade. And if you ask somebody that didn't follow the sport to pick which one of those it was the harder hitter, 100 out of 100 would be like that little burly Brazilian chick with the short hair. But
I don't know. Wei Li might have been the hardest hitter.
Okay,
she a little bit after, if you want to say, but the time period you're talking about. But
right. But she has, it's the Tiger Woods thing, where Tiger Woods in his prime was kind of lean and lanky, yet he could drive the ball farther than like these burly dudes like, you know, Ernie Els and Phil Mickelson and stuff, just because of flexibility.
If you say so. I have no idea. Sure.
Hey, I can talk about 1990s golf. I have no idea what the hell's happening now, but
okay. I could
but before MMA ate my life, I really did follow just about every sport there was.
Oh, I never watched a golf match in my life.
But I mean, let me just jump to the thing where, unless she just mentally comes out and has a mystifying mail-it-in performance like she did in the second Esparza fight, I agree that even on a regular bad night at the office, I think she's probably too much for Maverick. Maverick is one of those fighters that I like to make the distinction between what she thinks she is as a fighter versus what she turns into once the punches start flying. I mean, she has herself announced as a karate fighter. She stands like a karate fighter, and to her credit, I mean, I think it's a good thing, she's willing to turn to some solid wrestling and in close bullying. And really, her losses have come against women that doesn't work against. Yazdavicius, Blanchfield, even Barber, all just bigger and stronger than her. You go all the way back to Invicta. Neither Deanna Bennett nor Brogan Walker Sanchez are great fighters, but they're both big, strong flyweights who were much older than her at the time. Like, that's kind of her poison. And that isn't really Namajunas' game. But even so, to pick Maverick to either beat Namajunas on the feet by bouncing into range and landing single shots, that's hard to picture. It's also hard to picture her taking Namajunas down in 2 rounds out of 3 and keeping her busy enough, doing enough damage to win the rounds that way. So yeah, unless, again, Namajunas turns in a performance like she did against Esparza and just does literally nothing, I think at worst she wins 2 rounds out of 3 here and gets a pretty straightforward decision victory. I hate to say it, but yeah, give me Namajunas via decision in a fight that really doesn't push either woman closer to the title picture. With that, we come to the main event of UFC Atlanta, a welterweight contest between former champ Kamaru Usman and rising contender Joaquin Buckley. Usman, the 38-year-old Nigerian-American by way of Florida, is 20-4 overall. He is 15-3 since joining the UFC out of season 21 of The Ultimate Fighter. 15-3 overall, a run that saw him get all the way to the title and make a decent case to be considered, if not the, at least one of the greatest welterweights of all time, before dropping back-to-back title fights to Leon Edwards. He then had one fight at middleweight where he took on Khamzat Chimaev and acquitted himself fairly well in a majority decision loss. That was 20 months ago at this point, and he is stepping back in in the weight class where he originally made his legacy, and looking for one more huge win against one of the scariest guys in the division. Buckley, 31-year-old Missouriite training out of Michigan, is 21-6 overall. He's 11-4 since joining the UFC out of Bellator. 11-4 overall, but he is 6-0 since moving down to welterweight from middleweight. He fought 4 times last year, went 4-0, 3 of them by finish. Knocked out Vicente Luque in March, picked up a decision over Nursultan Ruzaboyev in May, knocked out Stephen Thompson in October, and hammered Colby Covington into a doctor stoppage in the 3rd round in the headliner of UFC on ESPN 63 in December. Buckley now steps into the highest profile fight of his career, his 2nd straight fight night main event, and he is favored to get it done here. Keith, what number does the line start with?
160.
Buckley is minus 275.
Wow.
Usman plus 225.
Damn.
Yeah,
No love for Usman.
I said off the top that this is a card with some wide lines, but more so than last week at UFC 316, I feel why some of these are what they are. I feel like I know why this line is almost 3-1 in favor of Buckley. And reason number one is that I never came right out and said it, but if anybody had asked me, I would have guessed that Kamaru Usman would never fight again. I thought he was probably done. Like by the time it got to last fall, he hadn't fought in a year,
Sure.
and we knew that it's the kind of narrative that fans and media run with, but it was based in fact, just the fact that going into the second Edwards fight, Usman's knees were so shot that he was having to walk backwards upstairs and was having to be careful, like what surfaces he walked on to get from like his car to the gym or his car to the venue.
Yeah.
That ain't good.
He's not getting invited to the backyard cookout. I think was Kamaru falling over.
He's
Kamaru rolling down the hill.
Yeah. Like, he's 38 years old, and it is 30. I mean, I'm not even going to say it's an old 38. 38 is old for a professional fighter, but it is 38 that's been marked by a lifetime of amateur wrestling, and the knees are not, it's not kind to the knees, even with people who don't go from there into a sport where people can kick your legs. He's spent years and years and years enduring what had to have been one of the most brutal weight cuts in the sport. I figured if he ever did fight again, it probably wouldn't be at 170, but here he is, man. He's stepping in against a dangerous, dangerous guy. And yeah, it's kind of a legacy thing. And I think legacy is kind of overstated, period. Like, unless you retire and then go molest kids or kill your wife or something, I'm going to remember you for the best moments in your career. Like, I couldn't even name you Fedor's last 6 fights. I know they were terrible, but I couldn't name you his last 6 fights. I know he ended on a terrible run, but if you ask me what I remember about Fedor, I'm going to give you the highlights.
Yeah.
Same with Kamaru Usman.
Nogueira's head off the mat.
Bouncing Nogueira's head off the mat.
Beating up
and Nogueira surviving it. Like that's also a highlight of Nogueira's career, weirdly. But legacy in terms of this could be a lot of people's last memory of Usman. Because
let me ask this one. Sorry. What do you think is his best one moment at Usman? What's his best moment? He had a lot.
It's probably got to be the first Covington fight, though.
That's a good one.
There was for real beef and grudge there, and Usman did what every fighter dreams of. He literally shut his opponent up. Like Covington might have been his best win, because Covington was in his absolute prime there. He was Covington was a great fighter at the time, and he literally left the arena and had to go get his jaw wired shut.
Yeah, that's a good one.
If you don't like Colby Covington, That's the happy ending of your movie right there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, Kamaru the Smashing Machine Usman ends with like asshole Colby getting his mouth wired shut.
That's
I don't necessarily feel that way, but what a moment.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. It's the one I think of is that unbelievable knockout of Jorge Masvidal. Like, he caught, like, could have caught a better punch than that one punch he did to Masvidal.
And that's his last great highlight, unless he goes and does something unconscionable to Buckley. But
we're leaving out wins over Gilbert Burns, what he did to Tyron Woodley. Like,
we're leaving out when he won the title. And dude,
a hell of a crap.
And in the tunnels after the fight, like crying on Tyron's mom's shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna cry if I start talking about it. Anyway.
Yeah,
but this
first of all, real quick. Yo, fuck my mom if she's hugging my opponent who just took my belt away from me. Fuck my mom. I ain't going to Thanksgiving, bitch. Oh, it's your time, baby. Fuck you. I just got beat up in front of like millions of people, and you're gonna hug my opponent and tell me it's his time. Screw you, bitch.
I'm gonna die over here. Here's what is awesome about Usman. The guy's always been a big game hunter. On some level, his back's against the wall. If he wanted another fight here, he's gonna kind of have to take what the UFC gives him. But two, he clearly still remembers being the guy that had a pretty long road to the top. Before there was Bilal, before there was Edwards, Usman had to win a lot of fights in a row to get into the title picture. So he's the guy that just was whooping dudes on undercards and yelling, "I'm a problem," into the mic, because this is some big game hunter shit right here. Joaquin Buckley is no longer an inconsistent guy that might knock you in the next week. Joaquin Buckley has done what every welterweight in the division dreaded would happen one day. He's figured out how to win fights when he doesn't knock you in the next week. He's become a well-rounded, well-coached, round-winning fighter when he needs to be, who also still has just absolutely just filthy, numbing power. And that's what Kamaru Usman is stepping into the cage against. And that's what makes the upset potential scarier, because again, I've said this for all of the 11 or 300 Joaquin Buckley fights that we've previewed, but my first introduction to Joaquin Buckley was his fight with Logan Storley back in Bellator, where even though Storley was visibly smaller than Buckley, he showed the difference between being a high school championship wrestler and being a 4-time NCAA All-American. That is no longer a route to victory that is open to Kamaru Usman. If Kamaru Usman beats Joaquin Buckley by grinding him out on the ground, I will eat this hat on the recap show. That's not, like, Usman can't do that anymore. And so what are we left with? We're left with him outboxing Buckley for 3 rounds out of 5, or knocking him out. It is possible to tag Buckley and put him down. And Usman, for a while there, was arguably the most dangerous striker in the division. He went from a good, powerful striker with decent physical tools to, Trevor Whitman turned him into a weapon. But at the age he's at, with the wear on his knees and what that is going to do not only for his wrestling but for his boxing footwork, it's hard for me to picture him doing that to Joaquin Buckley. Again, Buckley, against all odds, has turned into a smart and calculating fighter. I imagine that Joaquin Murcielago, and I just realized now that that's probably why Buckley went there, is because the head coach has the same name. I imagine that Joaquin Murcielago has Buckley in the gym like the end of Karate Kid 1, like, sweep the leg, Johnny. I hate to say this because I have a lot of good memories of Kamaru Usman. I think he's one of the greatest fighters ever.
Sure.
And his prime really happened while we've had a show, so I have fond memories of that, but I think Buckley's going to crush him. Best case scenario, we get a one-sided decision where Usman plays it super safe and just does his best not to get highlight reeled by Buckley and we get a 49-46 where even the 1 round for Usman is kind of a gift. Worst case scenario, Buckley starts unleashing some of those brutal kicks on the legs, on the body. Once Usman's movement is compromised even more, Buckley starts bouncing into the pocket. He's always been really good at entering the pocket against longer guys because everyone he fights is longer than him. And he jacks Usman's jaw in a way that meets the standard of even the first Edwards fight. I think that's probably the more likely outcome. Give me Buckley by 3rd round KO. And, if I'm seeing it right, like a KO of the year type thing.
Wow. Let me ask you this question. You said in the Namajunas Maverick fight, does the UFC want Namajunas win? Does the UFC want Usman win?
No, the UFC wants Buckley to win.
Yeah, I think that's it.
And it's the same reason. Yeah, it's this, but for me, it's the same reason because they don't want someone to win the title that 1 has already fought a ton of contenders and 2 is probably going to retire on you at any moment. Usman because his body can't do it anymore. Namajunas because her heart isn't in it anymore. But couldn't you see Namajunas just winning the title? Then, kind of not even doing a huge tearful farewell on the mic, but just kind of quietly retiring from her house in Milwaukee 2 months later.
Or just not even retiring, just UFC keeps
just
calling.
John Jonesing the shit out of this.
UFC's calling and they don't have her phone number is disconnected. She moved to like the Philippines or some shit, and she's.
Pat Barry picks up. No, man, I haven't seen her either.
Listen, no, never mind. I'm not gonna go that route. Usman versus Buckley. This I am intrigued by it because I understand why everybody is giving up on Usman. First of all, I think Usman should have stayed at middleweight.
Agreed.
Just because, at this age, make that cut, he was always a big guy, had to cut a lot of weight anyways. And also just there's more intriguing matchups for him because he's been in welterweight for a long time, and I think he did enough against Chimaev to show that he could still be a problem. And again, that was a really long time ago, but regardless, going back to welterweight, he's a long and lanky guy. He used to have high volume, but that has greatly dipped. His volume plummeted against Chimaev. He did take that fight on very short notice. I think it was that week, right? But still, he uses those long arms to kind of keep his opponents at the end of his strikes. He used to have one of the best jabs in the game. I still think it's there. Good straight right. That was always his best punch. He wings some power up punches. He works the body well. He does hit hard, and I don't think that's something that Usman will ever lose. Just look at the guy. He obviously knocked out a prime Kobe Covington. He knocked out Gilbert Burns. That we already talked about that KO of Jorge Masvidal.
If I may, one of the first people I ever interviewed for Sherdog was John Fitch, which bucket list thing for me. Like I've always been a Fitch fan, and it was ahead of his.
You're the one. Huh?
I'm the one. I was too late to be the Matt Lindland fan and interview him, but I got Fitch. Okay. But it was ahead of his fight with Paul Daly over in Bellator, and he's like, he's getting more and more limited, but power's the last thing to go. He's like, your chin goes, your gas goes, your speed obviously goes, but he says, I don't care if you're 65 and in a wheelchair. If you can crack, you can still crack.
Yeah.
With Usman, we might find out.
Kind of ironic though that John Fitch is the one telling you that because he never had power. So
no,
that's not true. He'll like grab your leg and lift you that sky power, but not punching power.
Yeah, but we might see Kamaru Usman like the first like wheelchair like bare knuckle guy if this doesn't go his way.
Yeah, that's true. him and Lieutenant Dan just duking it out at the bar.
You ain't got no legs, Kamaru. Yeah.
In his prime, he did a lot of teep kicks. I don't think that's something we'll see that much anymore. I am, like you mentioned, I am worried about his durability. He's been in so many wars. He's been in so many 25-minute fights. He's 38 years old. You said, he was knocked out bad by Leon Edwards. Chimaev hurt him. Even Colby, who's never really known for his power, was buckling him.
Burns almost finished. Burns almost finished.
Burns almost hurt, knocked him out of the first round. Colby was buckled him many times in the first fight, and then he almost, Kobe came on late in the second fight and kind of hurt him a little bit. And then you talked about those injuries he's had. He's had, obviously long wrestling career on top of that too. He does use his long arms well. He likes to like snatch singles. He can shoot and drive through the hips, but he doesn't do that much anymore. Even his prime, he wasn't that big of a shooter. He's more of a like catch a kick. That's how you got Miles down. Or mostly he just closed the distance, push you against the cage, and smother you there. I've said it, and we've talked about this at length. That's his best position. Being chest to chest. That's his world. He just struggles to get it there anymore. If he does, he could pin his opponent against the cage and he'll just like punch him in the ribs, stomp on their feet, knee him in the legs, stuff like that. That's what he did to RDA. That's what he did to Woodley in the title fight. One reason why Usman was so successful is because of his mindset. He'd get those takedowns. That was his mindset. He beat you up, and then suddenly he dropped down. You have to pull your legs out. It isn't necessarily, it's. I don't want to say this. I ask if that. The thing about him is he'll never let you rest. That was his prime. He'd work you, get you frustrated, drop down. If he doesn't get frustrated by missing a takedown, he just knows he'll eventually get it. And I just don't know if he has a physical to do that game anymore, because that's grueling and hard and taxing on your body. We saw in the second fight that he wasn't able to do that against Leon Edwards. If he does get the fight down, he does have a heavy top game. He always has been. If his opponent work back to his feet, Usman's going to stay glued on you. He's going to make you work every inch to get back to your feet. He's going to elbow you. He's going to shoulder you. He's going to stomp on your feet. He's always hitting you in every position, and he's making you work regardless of position. So he might have the physical, so he also has the cardio to do that. Which is tough at this age. If he was always hard to. He was so big guy. He was always hard to hold down, but that wasn't the case. Shmaev held him down for long periods of time. But he just shown that cardio was an issue. Like even late against Shmaev, his cardio was still strong. Buckley, I mean, he's a southpaw. He's an extremely athletic guy, and we saw that in his viral KO. He moves well. He's good at using his footwork to avoid shots, and also to kind of keep his opponents at his, picking them apart at range, but at his range that he wants. He cuts off the cage well when he wants to go forward and pressure. He's got good lateral movement, so he moves to a spot, and then he's throwing so his opponents have a hard time kind of seeing where it's coming, timing him. He has got nice volume. He's got quick hands. He's kind of like explodes, really springs into his shots. Good at darting and escaping out of range when he counters. He loves his straight left. He measures his shots really well. He also has, a lot of powerful hooks behind it. He's got a great ability to land power shots in the small spaces. We saw that against Stephen Thompson. There's a good like bob and weave style where he uses feints to really set up his knockouts. He rolls with punches well, and he's not Francis Ngannou, and the broadcast team is going to pretend he is, but the dude can crack him, and he definitely has power. He goes to the body a lot. Great high kick. I mean, that's what he knocked Andre Fiallo with, the high kick. He can wrestle. He's good at getting to the second level when he's shooting through the hips. He likes to get in the clinch and look for body lock takedowns. I mean, he got 5 takedowns against Razak Al Hassan. He took Stephen Thompson. I mean, everyone takes Stephen Thompson down if you're a wrestler. But Nursultan Ruzabayev, he took down 4 times. He doesn't have the best control, and he also doesn't have the best takedown defense himself, though he has improved in that area. He's shown, for a guy who's explosive and relies on explosion, he's got good cardio. I mean, there's a 3rd round knockout in elevation in Utah that when he knocked out Stephen Thompson. So I really want to pick Usman. I don't like seeing guys fade out like this, and it's weird. It doesn't seem like that long ago he was the massive favorite against Leon Edwards up. I don't know if it was 4 rounds, but I think it was pretty much up 4 rounds, nothing against Leon Edwards. Yeah. And then from that moment to where he is now, it doesn't seem that long ago, but man, things falling apart for him quickly. Now, again, who's he lost to? He lost, he lost a fight to a guy that he was beating the whole time, had a rematch, was a closer match than I remembered. I thought it was fairly easy for Edwards, but I think it was like was it a split or was it 3 rounds to 2? Something. It was close.
Yeah, it was a unanimous decision, but I think it was 3 rounds to 2 on at least 2 of the judges' scorecards.
Yeah, and I think some people like MMA decision might have gave it to Usman. Like it was close, and then he lost to Shmaev on short notice. So it's like he's lost the studs. Like maybe this narrative is just going now. Obviously, the Leon Edwards losses don't look as good as it did, 6 months ago or a year ago. But
no, it was a majority decision. Both of his last 2 losses were majority decisions.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, man. Chimaev was majority decision too. So, yeah.
Having said that, the Edwards fight, half the people scored it for Edwards. Some scored it for a draw, and 2 people scored it for Usman.
Okay. So it's either okay, got it.
One of them is someone I like, but is a terrible scorer. So, yeah.
Oh, Drake Riggs.
No, it wasn't Drake, actually. It was Kendrick Johnson, but yeah.
Yeah, but Kendrick probably. I like Kendrick. He's a good dude. I like Kendrick.
He's a good dude. But the fact that he's on press row in like a giant Kobe jersey tells you like how much he knows about MMA. It's like right there. It's like,
but he's also like he probably did like an interview with like Usman that week, and that's why he picked him, because that's the kind of guy he is. He's loyal. He's loyal to his people. But that said, and it definitely makes you wonder. Are we over exaggerating his losses? Because I mean, you're talking about, winning up to the 5th round, having a majority decision loss and a majority decision loss to Chimaev. Doesn't look that bad now when you put it in that perspective.
It doesn't. But here's the thing: if he won the majority decision against Chimaev, say he gets that, and the next time we see him is 18 months later, back down at welterweight against Buckley, I still don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. But
we both be screaming, why is he back down at 170?
But if he beat Chimaev, he might have been fighting for the title.
Yeah, he might have been. Yeah.
But especially because, he's a guy that the UFC likes. So while on paper it doesn't look that bad, the eyeball test says otherwise. He looks like a guy who's fading fast. Buckley, on the hand, he has looked great. I'm with you. I think he's going to be too fast for Usman. I think he's going to have way too more volume. I think he might be the one who gets a takedown if that goes. I don't. Yeah, I'm going to say he might even take Usman down. I think he's going to hurt Usman. I think he's going to drop him 1 or 2 times. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to say he doesn't finish Usman. But I think Usman's done being a top guy, and Buckley gets a pretty easy decision. Can be Buckley with a unanimous decision.
All right, there you have it. And that is the Sherdog Radio Network preview for UFC on ESPN 69, Usman versus Buckley, also known as UFC Atlanta. I have been Ben, he has been Keith. If this is your first time watching or listening to one of our previews, first of all, thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. We do our best to bring a mix of in-depth analysis and occasional humorous or historic asides that we think we do about as well as anybody in this industry. Please do like, subscribe. Neither of those cost you anything. They make our bosses happy. They allow us to keep bringing you this content free of charge. Please drop us a comment. Keith and I both man the comment section. We'd love to hear your take on these fights. We each picked a couple of upsets. We picked 2 unanimous upsets. If you think we left any upset value on the table, let us know. If you're right and we're wrong, we will give you your flowers on the recap. You just have to come get them. We're live on the Sherdog YouTube page right after the main event. Keith takes the captain's chair. We'll go through all 13 of these fights in reverse order, from the headliner on down to the curtain jerker, talking about what was good, what was bad, what was surprising, what was controversial. There's always something. Talking about what's next for some of the notable winners as well as losers, and talking with you. The live chat is open that whole time, so we're taking your questions, your comments, and your hot takes in real time. We have a growing community of friends that hang out with us after the fights. Some of them are really smart, some aren't so smart. We love them all alike. Most of them are just trying to make us laugh. We'd love for you to join it. Between now and then, thank you once again for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, and by all means, enjoy these fights.